Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our board meeting. I'm opening our official August 21st board meeting of the school district at 6 o'clock. We will begin with roll call. Director Chancha Shore. Here. Graziano. Here. Holtzman.
Here.
Lemieux.
Here.
Lung.
Here.
Ray here, and Vogel is away with her college student right now, so her absence is excused. I also want to introduce Zoe Zizzo, who is our new Vice President for our Student Advisory Group. So welcome, Zoe. We're delighted to have you here on the dais with us.
Welcome.
All right, yes. At this time, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is our favorite agenda item, which is student and staff recognitions. Dr. Tucker. And I believe Director Holtzman will be assisting.
Yes. President Ray, members of the board, our guests, our students, good evening. Come on now, we can do better than that. Now, come on now, you know I'm going to stop you if you do that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So pleased that everyone could join us tonight as we kick off the start of the 18-19 school year, and I'm sure that your students are having a great time, correct? Good. They're having a great time, right, Zoe? Yeah. Great time? Good, good, good. On the 9th, the week of the 9th, each of our board of directors and staff members joined up to visit all 91 of our schools, our neighborhood schools, our charter schools, elementary, middle, and high school. So let's give them a round of applause. Director Lemieux and I had the pleasure of visiting the Highlands Ranch area. I think we got in, 11 or 12? How many schools did we get? 12. Nate, how many schools did we get in? About 9 schools, and had a great day, but again, a great opportunity for our board members and our administrators to get out and help all of our schools kick off the start of the 18-19 school year. So again, very pleased with that. Now, we also have a special surprise because our communications department has put together a video, and it's like a collection or a montage of pictures of all of our schools. Is that correct, Nate? Okay, very good. Roll the clip.
Change. Change of season, change of schedule.
Yeah, get them back to the routine, get them going to school, get them to learn some new things.
A changing of the guard.
And how are you doing? I'm Thomas Tucker. I'm the new superintendent. What are you, a 4th grader or a 10th grader?
I'm 3rd.
3rd grader.
Change brings with it lots of firsts.
He's in a 4th, 5th grade combo class this year.
The first year we'll have a technology rotation here in a while.
Some run toward it. Some resist it.
Because who likes school, right?
But there are ways to embrace the change, like setting goals.
I want to get A's in all my classes, man.
Or singing a song.
Go, go.
And holding close those who you hold dear.
I'll walk you to your class.
It's those little familiarities that can bring comfort.
High five. There you go.
Ow!
Because it's not all different.
What's up, dude? Let's do this!
Same old, same old.
We're still all in this together.
No one cares if you're a bit late to the first day.
The best part of the first day of school?
Get to see who's in our class. We don't have homework.
It just might be the person next to you.
People I know. She's nervous. Hopefully, she's got the butterflies.
1, 2, 3.
So embrace the beginning.
Every year we just feel like it keeps getting better and better.
We just have a great spirit of happiness in our building right now.
Because the strength of us
So excited.
will not change.
Give yourselves a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Good job.
Yes. You can see that our teachers, support staff, administrators all went out of their way to ensure that our students had a great first day. Let's give them another round of applause. So now on to the recognitions. Tonight we have a finalist for the prestigious Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, which is the nation's top STEM education. Again, which is the nation's top honor for STEM's education. We'd like to ask that Pine Lane Elementary teacher Stephanie Kawamura to please come forward, and her principal, Chris Stairs. Come up front and join us. Principal Stairs. Yeah, right here. Yeah. So now, this is your first year as principal, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, in the building. So what is it like having an outstanding teacher like this?
It's phenomenal. I think, you want me to talk a little bit? What has been very clear to me in the 2 months that I've known Ms. Kawamura is that she's just a passionate advocate for students and gifted learners. She and I met before school, talked about the needs of the Discovery program. It's just become abundantly clear that she really cares about those kids. And I think we have a legacy of that sitting right here with several of the next students who will be coming up who are former students of Ms. Kawamura.
Fifth grade. She taught them in
fifth and sixth grade, yeah.
Mrs. Kawamura was a 5 when
and I think she's a risk taker. She's her colleagues remark on her as somebody who is willing to do what needs to be done for those kids, that she's very in tune with where they're at, both emotionally and academically, and meets those needs. And I think this is a prime example of that, because from what I understand, Ms. Kawamura, you didn't always gravitate toward math and science, and you picked this to jump into because you saw that this was a need for your kids, and you jumped in and got that PD with the Science Foundation, and then has now been a teacher liaison for the Science Foundation for 10 years, enjoyed that, brought it back to her kids, and just made sure that they were getting that science and technology and engineering and mathematics teaching.
Very good, Chris. I thought maybe you were going to take over the interview for me here. Anything else, Chris, based upon your observation and the observation of her colleagues that really sets her apart from other great teachers in the nation?
I think it has to do with that teacher with itness, that ability to know her kids and anticipate what they need and meet those needs in a timely manner in a way that moves them forward and inspires them to success. So we're proud of you. Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay. Stephanie, congratulations. Let's give her another round of applause. Yeah. What does a superior honor like this, what does it mean to you and to your students and Douglas County School District?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. This is such an honor. And I want to thank my three gentlemen up here, too, because it's students like them that encourage me to take my own learning to the next level. And I've always loved math, but like you said, science wasn't necessarily something I was super good at. And so I jumped in trying to figure out how to make that better for them. And in the process, made it better for me and became really super excited about that. And when I was in Washington, D.C. this past summer with 160 elementary school teachers and college professors that were excited about STEM learning, it blew my mind. It blew my mind that we can take these students to a new level, and that there are people in our nation that want to recognize that and make it even stronger and better.
Thank you. Director Holtzman, would you make some comments on behalf of the board and introduce three of her outstanding former students?
Right. I want to thank you personally and on behalf of the board for the tremendous service that you've done. You're getting a hug. And thank you for being here and for supporting her. So, and thank you guys for allowing me to pass the microphone off to three friends who have a lot in common. And I would like for them to actually present her the award. The board is very grateful, but I thought that it would probably mean more coming from your students, knowing you. So I will briefly introduce them. These three friends, they share a lot in common. They were all in Mrs. Kawamura's 5th and 6th grade class. They all went on to graduate from schools in Douglas County as valedictorians of their high schools. And then they all went and they've enrolled in college and they're all majoring in physics. So, so without further ado, I'd like for you guys to come on up. I'll introduce you one at a time. Ansh Desai graduated in 2017 from Legend High School, currently attends the University of Colorado. Modalani Oyuwali, or Mo, as we like to call him, graduated just this past year in 2018. He will be going to Harvard in the fall. And Will Holtzman, who I do look alike, graduated in 2016, and he goes to the University of Denver. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and I'll give this also to you to present. I've asked them each to just take just a moment each to say thank you or to share a memory, and I appreciate you guys being here. So.
We are all so honored to be here today to help to recognize someone who had such a great influence on us in elementary school, and Mrs. Kalmara still continues to influence all of us even as we are all either in college or heading out to college, and we really want to take a moment to share some memories of her teaching. And so for me, I think one of the best memories I have with Mrs. Kalmara is the space camp she put on when I was in 6th grade in her class. And this was something, and if I remember right, it was during the summer. It wasn't during the school year. And she put it on. We got to go. We got to make little bottle rockets, launch them into the air. And also another really cool thing we got to do is we got to program these little robots to go through a course and do certain activities. And this is actually something that I still find really valuable to do, valuable today. I do a lot of programming with a job I have, and this activity gave me kind of the foundation to build off of for things I still do today, which is really awesome.
All right, so one memory I have of being in Mrs. Kamara's class that I really enjoyed was one time we had a competition where we were making paper airplanes. And while that may not seem very educational, it was an example of how Ms. Kamara not only teaches us facts, but inspires us to imagine. So for this competition, we had to figure out a design for a paper airplane that would fly the longest, like the furthest, or stay in the air the longest. So we had to do some research on different types of airplanes and putting like different designs together and trying to come up with the best possible plane that we could. And that is something that really kind of inspired me to think outside of the box, because a lot of what you really need to know in the world is how to think different from everyone else, not just in the exact same way. And that's one thing that was really special to me.
Mrs. Kalmara also recognizes the importance of well-roundedness. I remember one time she had a mystery author come in and teach us how to write a mystery novel, and then she promptly turned us out to write our own little mystery stories with no guidance or anything. And us three wrote a story about a man who stole, not kidnapped, the President of the United States. And a couple years ago, in my senior year of high school, I had a project I was doing with my friend where I was teaching elementary schools Chinese, and Ms. Kamara made time for us to come in, and I went and I got to see how happy and excited her kids were and how happy they are to learn. And it's just amazing, because if you compare those kids to all the other elementary school kids, they are happy, they're excited to learn, and it's just an energy she brings to the classroom. And I remember how inspired I was when I was in her class, and I could not think of a more deserving person to win this award. Thank you for all you've done for us.
I love you guys so much.
So you all know what's next after the group hug. It's now time for a group photo. So let's jump in for a group photo. campus. Oh, okay. Okay. Another big congratulations for Stephanie and her former students. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for putting Douglas County School District on the national stage. This is where we belong. This is Douglas County, people. This is Douglas County. Now, as I close our recognition portion, again, I want to thank all of our teachers, support staff, administrators, board of directors, and parents for getting your students up on time on the buses or delivered to school on time to ensure not only that we have a great start of the school year, but an entire great school year. So stay tuned. We'll see you at our next board meeting for additional recognitions.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. Next item on our agenda is to accept the agenda, and I do need to announce that we need to make a modification. At the end of our agenda, we will consider an executive session for consultation with our attorney. And so I am just recommending that modification. So with that, a motion.
I'll make that motion to accept the agenda with the modification you stated.
Second.
Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Lemieux. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano. Aye. Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. Okay. Next on our agenda is public comment. And we see we have lots of people that are wanting to come and speak to us, which we think is wonderful. I do want you to know that we do value public comment, and it's our desire to hear the diverse viewpoints from a broad spectrum of citizens throughout the district on any issue that impacts the educational needs of students. The board would like all discourse that occurs in this room to be done in a mutual way. Everyone in this room plays an important part in modeling appropriate behavior and promoting a climate of mutual respect. We encourage you to focus on the issue as opposed to a specific person. Therefore, please refrain from using individual names in a defaming manner. We do adhere to Board Policy KE, Public Complaints, which outlines the process for responding to grievances and complaints as close to their origin as possible. Therefore, we encourage the proper channels of concerns. For example, concerns that are involving a child should begin with the teacher, then the building administrator, then the director of schools, assistant superintendent, and superintendent before appealing to the Board of Education. We also ask that a similar process be used if you have concerns regarding a specific board member. The first step is to contact and discuss the concern with that individual board member. If no resolution is met, then contacting myself or Vice President Vogel. If still not satisfactorily resolved, then addressing the entire board is appropriate. We do want to promote a world where people speak with each other as opposed to about each other. Each speaker tonight will be allotted to up to 3 minutes to address the board. Please know that this is our time to just listen, and therefore an immediate response is usually not given. However, we will take your concerns seriously and do everything possible to get your questions answered, or request an appropriate staff member to contact you, or we will address the topic in a future agenda. As I call the speaker to the podium, I will call the name of the person afterwards, and so if you can help us tonight, because we have a lot of speakers, I would appreciate if the person that is following, if you would just come up to the front row and be ready to come to the podium after the speaker before you speak. So given that, we will begin with Amber Nguyen, and after Amber Nguyen is Sarah Porter. So Sarah Porter, if you, there's some empty seats up here. If you would come on up to the front row as well and just be ready after Ms. Nguyen speaks.
Hi.
Good evening.
Thank you, board, for letting us speak tonight. Just wanted to introduce myself, Amber Nguyen, and my son, Benjamin Nguyen. You might remember him from a couple years ago when we were here. And
he's grown.
Yes, he has grown like a weed. And anyway, he just wanted to be here tonight. He had a party to go to, but he wanted to be here tonight to stand with his mom. So as we were here a few years ago, a few of you might remember us speaking about the policy, the school policy that we helped pass here, which I'm very proud of, the JLCDB policy regarding medical cannabis for our patients here in the district. I sent an email to everyone yesterday. I'm not sure if everyone got it, but if you didn't get it, you're welcome to email me and I'd be happy to share. There were some attachments in there, so I won't really go over a lot of that. Kind of just laid out the current policy that's in place and then also the amendment that we helped pass this year to further allow school personnel to administer cannabis to students if they choose. It's not a mandatory thing by any means, but if the school district wants to alter the policy, maybe update that so that school personnel are protected. That was kind of in the law. Everything's already been done on the legislature side of it. So, and that was HB 18-1268, or 86, sorry. And so with that, you know, the students would be bringing, or their parents would be bringing their cannabis medicine in a lockbox to the school campus daily. It would come daily. It would leave home daily. Would not stay on school campus. Obviously, there has to be procedures and the policy change for that. So we're here tonight to ask for, you know, awareness of the law that changed. Hickenlooper signed on June 4th. So we're doing great, and Benjamin is 32 months seizure-free as of last week. He's not had a seizure. He's not had a seizure since the day he started cannabis. Like you saw, he's grown. He's doing great in school, and junior this year at Mountain Vista. So life is great for us, and we hope the same for the students here in the district, that we could further help them out with, you know, parents need to go to school, need to go to work. Obviously, some parents have past medical expenses and need to work, and so it's nice if they don't have to come to school campus during the day. And if a staff member is willing, we have heard of principals and other staff willing to administer cannabis medicine for patients, for the students here. So if that would be allowed, we'd appreciate that very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Wan, and Benjamin. So good to see you. Thanks for coming. Sarah Porter. After Sarah Porter is Cindy Sovine.
There's a lot of people here.
Indeed.
Thank you for your time. Our daughter Marley is a 12-year-old student at Castle Rock Middle. She's also diagnosed with early onset ileocolonic gastroduodenal Crohn's disease, severe inflammatory bowel disease affecting her entire GI tract. About 6 years old, Marley's health started to decline. Skin rashes, allergic reactions, fevers, back and joint pain, fatigue. Her appetite was gone, and she started to refuse eating her favorite foods. Over several months and many doctors' visits, her growth declined from 60th percentile to the 15th percentile. She had frequent bathroom emergencies and couldn't sleep at night because of her constant stooling. She continued to lose weight. At 7 years old, she weighed just 38 pounds. Desperate for help, we took Marley to different doctors, and in April of 2014, she was officially diagnosed with Crohn's. There began Marley's battles with pharmaceuticals. Steroids, immune modulators, anti-inflammatory drugs, biologic infusions, anti-metabolites. Nothing induced remission. Marley suffered from some serious side effects, including kidney and liver problems and adrenal failure. Her Crohn's only progressed, and in January of 2016, doctors at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore suggested surgery to remove her sigmoid colon. This was only a Band-Aid for a small part of her issues, so we declined. We made the choice to move our family to Colorado so we could have safe and legal access to cannabis medicine, and have treated Marley with cannabis oil since August 4th of 2016, without surgery, without all of the dangerous pharmaceuticals. It has been a long road to health, and Marley has worked so hard to fill the gaps in her education. This past year at Soaring Hawk is the first year Marley has completed since 2nd grade. We are so proud of her. But we still have challenges. Marley needs to take her medicine consistently and timely. Skipping a single dose occasionally is human, but missing 3 to 4 doses a week times 4 weeks a month over time. This really builds up. It's a constant struggle for me as her caregiver to leave work every day at the same time, to be at school to administer her medicine. Allowing school nurses to store and carry and administer a student's cannabis medicine would change my family's life, my life. It would give my daughter her independence, give her a chance to go to school as normal as other kids. I will not be interrupting or taking anyone's time at school on a daily basis. I will not be using my employer's time when I can't make it back to work. It would be life-changing. I also want to thank the principal and staff at Castle Rock Middle School. They are the soul and spirit of education and compassion. They were very willing to work with us if this policy is changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Porter. Mrs. Porter, I see that your daughter is on our list to speak. Is Marley here?
She is. However, I don't know if she will speak or not because she's a little shy. There are a lot of people here. Marley, do you want to come up? I'm sorry if I'm taking someone else.
Yay, Marley.
If you want to be shy, if you just...
We're not as mean as we look, Marley.
Yeah. I know. I'm a little nervous too because we're kind of personal and private people.
Sure, sure. Marley, anything you want to tell us, or it's up to you? It's so good to see you, though.
Hi. I just really would like to take my cannabis at school. It would make me feel a lot more responsible for how I take my medicine because I know I'm going to have to take care of it myself more as I get older and get into high school and higher grades and that. So I feel like it would just be better to take it consistently so that I don't have any stomach aches or anything that I have to do in the middle of class and have to leave. So
Sure. Fantastic statements. Thank you, Marley. You did a great job. Thank you. I did call Cindy Servine, but I'm hearing that she's not here. But just one more call to see if Cindy is in the audience. Cindy Servine. Seeing not, we will have Rachel Debroni. I know I always mess up your name. I'm sorry, Rachel. Rachel Broni, and then after Rachel is Sally Pistilli. Is Rachel here? There she is. Then Sally, if you'll come to the front of the room as well and be ready after Rachel speaks. So Rachel, please pronounce your last name for me.
Debroni.
Debroni, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here to talk about what it has felt like for a student with dyslexia in Douglas County School District. When I first started kindergarten, 2 weeks in, I knew I was different. We learned that difference was dyslexia. It impacted the way I read, spell, and write. I wish that learning I had dyslexia fixed everything and my teachers knew how to help me, but it didn't. Through the years, I've had many teachers who did not understand that you can struggle to read and still be capable and smart. Many times, I noticed they thought I was dumb. I thought I was too. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. O'Brien, believed in me. She insisted I could do more than I believed I could. After I went to middle school, it seemed that teachers understood less. Not saying that they didn't care about me, just they didn't seem to understand what I needed. My last year of middle school was not good. You see, I began to think it would be easier to be dead than it was to be alive. I felt very alone and like something was wrong with me. I began to hurt myself in small ways, and if it wasn't for my parents or my support system, it probably would have escalated. I hated myself. When it came to transition to high school, they told me they were going to put me in a class perfect for kids who weren't going to college. I can't tell you how awful it was to hear that. You see, I want to go to college. I've wanted to for many years. I want to be a teacher like Mrs. O'Brien, a teacher who sees the potential in students and helps them realize it. I need college to be able to do that. And while I'm working to get there, I need people to believe I can. I didn't get the instruction I needed until 9th grade, when I began at a private school for kids with learning differences. A lot of things changed. I started receiving Orton Gillingham instruction every day. I was taught how to advocate for myself. I was taught I was capable and smart. I was taught I'm worthy. I'm still working on believing that. I want all students with dyslexia to have this chance. I ask you to teach our teachers about dyslexia and to give our teachers the resources they need to help a kid like me. I know once I got what I needed, it changed my life. And for the first time, I got the chance to be on an honor roll, and I'm proud. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. And Rachel, hopefully in a few years, I hope we see your application for a teaching position in our school district. We need teachers like you, so we'll look forward to seeing your name. Okay, Sally Pastelli is up next, and after Sally Pastelli is Jamie Vandergriff.
Hello, my name is Sally Pastelli, and I am here representing DC Kid as well as Rachel. DC Kid is the Douglas County Douglas County kids identified with dyslexia. So we, I know I've been here a couple of months ago talking about the dyslexia task force. We have organized into DC Kid. I think I saw Rachel's parents have our t-shirts on, so hopefully you're going to see a lot of parents around in the district wearing our t-shirts. We are under a larger umbrella, just to let you know, called CO Kids, standing for Colorado Kids Identified with Dyslexia, that has parent groups like our group wanting the same goals for all their districts who have band together to provide a larger state presence, who are working with state legislators as well as the State Board of Education. So just wanted to give you that update on who we are. And then my main goal for being here is to tell you about the meeting that we held on June 20th with 5 of your district leaders and give you a little bit of an update. So I have all the notes in here for you to read. I don't think I have time in 3 minutes. I will briefly go over some of the highlights. We did talk about the READ Act quite a bit because many of our students are on a READ plan, and how the district will be putting out more information on the website that parents can access, and I think that's going to really help the parents in the communication with the district. We talked about literacy screenings and how we have general reading screeners but no dyslexia screeners, and how we will get down to some more information on that in further meetings. We discussed the current literacy interventions that are in place. Douglas County mostly using reading recovery right now in about 50% of their schools as their main literacy intervention. Not proven to work very well with students with dyslexia, and so we have talked about the structured literacy, that Orton Gillingham that Rachel brought up, and how we can put that out on our website as well as another choice for literacy intervention. Right now, all that's out there does discuss reading recovery, and so we did a great deal of talking about how we could provide more information to not only our families but to our teachers about what is available out there, what they might be interested in looking into. We also talked about how even when Douglas County has provided some structured literacy trainings, mostly in Wilson reading, they have not been well attended over the last few years, and I think that's due to lack of knowledge by our principals about why they might want their teachers to go to this type of training. We talked about how we need to put information about dyslexia in general on our website because there is none. Definition, facts, characteristics, interventions, accommodations, those types of things. And to clarify how teachers can use the word at their schools. I've been in a couple of IEP meetings over the last couple of weeks on which the schools say we're not allowed to use the word, or they say, we don't have any resources for our students with dyslexia, therefore, we don't even know who to go to in the district to ask for help around dyslexia. So just a great deal of training there. We will be providing some Dyslexia 101 training with all of the Douglas County READ Act coordinators on October 2nd. So that's very exciting, and we're very anxious to do that. And the DC Kid families are raising the funds so that this will be at no cost to Douglas County schools. Our next meeting is on August 30th. And just thank you all so much for keeping dyslexia in the conversation as you're making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pistelli. Jamie Vandergrift. After Jamie Vandergrift is Dennis Houston.
Hi.
Good evening.
As a parent of a first grader at American Academy Lincoln Meadows, I would like the board to consider an aggressive plan to move the school district to renewable energy. In the U.S., K-12 schools spend $6 billion annually on energy bills. We would save money, and we would save money that can be used elsewhere in the schools while simultaneously helping create a more sustainable future for our children. The Department of Energy even provides a Zero Energy School Accelerator Plan as a guide. In order to move the school district towards a renewable energy plan, I support a bond and mill levy override measure so that we can address the district's funding needs and then begin to move forward for planning for the future.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Vandergrift. Mr. Houston, after Mr. Houston, if Mark Porter or Cindy Sovine is in the room, otherwise we'll go on to Julie Lamb. Good evening, Mr. Houston.
Good evening. As the CEO of the Park Area Chamber of Commerce, I'm here before you tonight on behalf of our 14-member board of directors, our 600 area businesses we represent, the 20,000 employees and constituents that they represent, to first of all say thank you for your service as school board members. We appreciate all that you do for Douglas County's kids. As a chamber, we serve all of Douglas County, the Tech Center area, and far beyond. On behalf of our chamber, we'd like to say congratulations and thank you also for hiring Dr. Tucker. We've already had some great partnership meetings in the last month and look forward to partnering with him in the days, weeks, and years ahead. We recently brought on Laura Toole as our new Vice President of Workforce and Education. We're very proud of that because we're the first business organization in the entire region to bring someone on dedicated to workforce. And her title is Workforce and Education because it's going to be focused on partnerships between the business community and our education partners. Bringing students and jobs together is probably going to be the most important thing I do over the next 15 years as a chamber CEO, and we're very proud to do that work. Why am I here tonight? Part of this some of you have heard before. I'm here tonight because of the middle school dance. We have business on one side of the gym, and we have the education community on the other side of the gym. Our organization wants to bring those two sides together throughout the region, throughout the county, to partner to do some phenomenal work together for our kids, to bring those kids up into the careers that are available right here in our own backyard. CTE, or Career and Technical Education, is one of those things that will open those doors for our kids' futures. You look at the 20,000 students we currently have in K through 12 in the Douglas County school system that will not, statistically will not go on to college after they graduate high school in Douglas County. Another 20,000 students who do go on to college following graduation will not complete their college degree. That gives us a pool of 40,000 students and future workers that we want to work with to help partner with our education community to find careers and opportunities for them along the way. The Douglas County business community needs career and technical education. We are in desperate need of plumbers, electricians, contractors, auto mechanics. We need thousands of IT professionals and engineers in the years ahead. These are high skill, high wage, and high demand jobs with wages of $65,000 to $125,000 annually. These folks can afford to live in Douglas County and raise a family here. These are honorable careers that we should all be very proud of for our kids in the future. We also have 10 to 15 million square feet of office space coming online along the 470 corridor and I-25 corridor. Those aren't just buildings, but that's going to be tens of thousands of new jobs where we're going to need to partner with our education community to find those workers for those future jobs. We are not currently as competitive as we could be in CTE in Douglas County. We want to partner with you to make that possible with things like career academies, training and education initiatives inside the school system. We need to think big when it comes to ideas about our kids, and we want to partner with you to do just that. So I invite you guys to meet me in the middle of the gym floor so we can work together to do that. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, Mr. Houston. Just one last call for Cindy Sovine or Mark Porter, and seeing them not here, Julie Lamb, and after Julie Lamb is Patty Anderson. And if Patty's here, if you would come on up to the front too, Patty, that'd be great.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This morning I woke to an email from the Sky Sox ticket deal to include food and fireworks for tonight, and I thought how fun that would be. Then I remembered it's DCSD Board of Ed night and how much I love our district, administration, teachers, staff, students, and community. I decided for yet another Tuesday evening I would come sit in the Board of Ed room in support of what is best for kids. In years past, I have spoken out against changes in policy and ethics, morals regarding the state of public education and the direction that DCSD is going in. Tonight, I'm here to speak to you in support of a bond mill to be placed on the November 2018 ballot. We moved here 12 years ago. I was an active parent right out of the gate with sports, school, and the community. I personally witnessed the destruction that was happening beginning 9 years ago, and since then I have gone to as many Board of Ed meetings that my busy family of 6 allowed me to, sometimes missing family dinner time, help with schoolwork, and often I had to sit on the floor at the Board of Ed meetings. The year I began attending Board of Ed meetings, November of 2009, my kids were at American Academy, a charter school that was just built in my neighborhood. I watched it as an amazing principal and leader was fired right after this new building was in place and the school is off and running. I decided to attend their Board of Ed meetings at the charter school, and from there, the disgust of their attitudes towards education and finances, and the fact that when I called DCSD for answers I could not get, I decided to begin attending DCSD Board of Ed meetings to find out there was a political agenda to change direction of public education in DCSD. As an elementary education certificate graduate, co-op preschool educator, parent, mother, activist, baseball, swim, soccer mom, I've spent 8 years fighting for public education here in DCSD and educating anyone and everyone as to the state of our once front runner in education school district. When I first began my fight, it was because the idea was our district wanted to be 100% choice, charter or public. And while I knew better for my own kids, I also knew that there were kids and families out there that didn't know better, and this direction would not be good for all or for most, but certainly in certain demographics and social areas. So I wanted to be the voice for those who didn't have one. However, a year into it, December 2010, our principal was set up and fired for speaking out, speaking the truth. This became the norm. If you spoke out, you were set up and fired. A new way to evaluate teachers was brought in to get rid of amazing teachers, and it worked. We saw thousands of teachers flee to other surrounding districts or leave their career altogether. I studied education, the work, the school, the projects, the time, the classrooms, the caring of OPK, other people's kids. For the love of teaching was diminishing in DCSD. It became a survival of the fittest. A few years later, we had over 100% of principals/leaders turnover, not because every school lost their principal, but because in our middle school, in 1 year, for example, 3 principals we lost in the same year. In the past couple of years, having 4 kids attend the same high school, I saw our ratings go down for no reason other than the Board of Ed trying to fail our school to promote an agenda for privatization. I saw so many great teachers leave for better pay in other districts to the tune of $13,000 to $18,000 pay jump in districts right next door. We've seen sports activity fees go from $25 a kid to $185. And just to put this in perspective, last year we spent $4,200 for our daughter to be a JV cheerleader. Not to mention thousands of dollars for the past 8 years for my kids to play high school baseball. High school baseball. So during the past 8 years, passing a bond was not an option for a few reasons. 1, there was no trust, and 2, the political agenda was such that the majority reform board promised no tax increase. We are in a whole new place now. We have a new board with transparency, and they're trustworthy, with a focus on education, students, and community to be the best district in Colorado and a front runner for education for our country. A new superintendent who has a focus and vision on education, student safety, and health Healthy Students has arrived and is settling into the position. I ask you to please put on a bond mill to better support our students, schools, and community. If other surrounding districts, Cherry Creek, Littleton, Boulder, can support and pass a bond to fully fund public education, then so can we. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lamb. Mrs. Anderson, after Patty Anderson is Alana Cohen. Now, Alana, if you're in the room, if you would come down to the front, please. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Board of Directors, thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak this evening. I am a parent of 3 kids at 3 different neighborhood schools. I have served on 2 SACs as DAC liaison, chair, and vice chair. Attended SAC for the 3rd school, been on the PTO board, and my husband is a school bus driver in DCSD. I have 2 items from the agenda that I'd like to discuss. First of all is the parent and family engagement policy. This summer, I was able to attend the DAC working session when this was hammered out. And I want to thank the DAC leadership for one of the most productive meetings I have ever attended in my last 5 years volunteering in this district. The attendees collaborated, discussed, disagreed, came to consensus, and modified the policy into something that was well received last week by the DAC as a whole. I truly feel this policy captures the many voices that will participate in educating the children in our district and encourages engagement for all students to succeed. Please know, many people spent many hours collaborating to create this robust and thorough policy. Second, we need to pass a bond and mill that can support our students and staff now. I stand behind the FOC's recommendation to ask for a $300 million bond and a $40 million mill levy override. Our schools need the additional funding now, and we need to fix our Tier 1 capital needs now. My 6th grader, 3rd grader, and 2nd grader are worth the 61-cent daily cost that is being proposed by the FOC memo. Some Tier 1 needs for my kids' schools include fire alarm systems that are out of date, emergency lighting that needs updating, and roofing that needs to be finished. This barely scratches the surface. There are many other needs. Ponderosa, the high school my children will attend, has so many capital needs that there is not enough space in the master capital plan for all of them. Only their Tier 1 and a portion of their Tier 2 needs are published. My kids deserve to have working boilers when they get to high school. They deserve a roof that doesn't leak on them as they're trying to learn. They deserve appropriate seating in the gyms at Ponderosa. They all deserve air conditioning systems that properly heat and cool their schools now. These are some of the Tier 1 needs that will cost the average homeowner 61 cents a day. I think all kids in our district are worth it, not just my 3. In regards to the need for the mill, my husband was not a part of the pay freeze in DCSD. However, you heard from 2 of his coworkers at your last meeting who were affected by that freeze. Those 2 and all classified employees who have stuck it out in this district through the tougher times need to be recognized, appreciated, and compensated for their dedication to our Douglas County kids. This would include our bus drivers and our security team, who are at the core of student safety, our front desk staff members, our educational assistants, our nutrition service workers, our custodians, and all other classified staff. These individuals are just as important as the classroom teachers in the lives of many children. The mill question also includes support for students who may not be college-bound, but rather career-focused. These kids need additional funds so we can create a future workforce ready to support all members of our society. I've highlighted some of the areas important to me, and you have heard many others speak on the importance of a bond and a mill. I urge you to follow the FOC's recommendation to ask the voters to approve a $300 million bond and a $40 million mill levy override. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Alana Cohen. After Alana is Abe Layden. Hi, Alana.
Good evening. My name is Alana Cohen, and I am a proud Legend High School science teacher and Douglas County Federation member. I am here as part of the Douglas County Federation's Education Research Series to share some independent research on the impact of funding on public schools. Many people here tonight are asking you to place a bond and/or mill levy override measure on the ballot, and this research supports these requests. You will find that increased funding has a direct impact on student outcomes, including graduation rates and future earnings. Increased funding helps keep class sizes down, attract and retain high-quality teachers and staff, and allow for necessary supports for student success. You can read more about that in the research we have provided. The Douglas County Federation respectfully requests you to consider the research behind school funding as you make your decision around a ballot measure. Additionally, we encourage you to support Amendment 73 as Douglas County is in need of both sources of funding. The support of both efforts adds value and ensures a stronger starting point to be competitive with teacher salaries, recruitment, and expansion of programs, among other needs. Live stream viewers and audience members can find the research I gave to the board members on our website, douglascountyfederation.com. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Abe Layden. After Abe Layden is Maggie, Peter Bierbaum, and Jake Miley.
Good evening. My name is Abe Layden. My wife Kimberly and I are parents of 3 young children in Douglas County. I also serve as a Douglas County Planning Commissioner and am currently a County Commissioner candidate from District 1. But I was thankful to be invited here tonight by members of our community and just wanted to say it is an exciting time to be in Douglas County. We are seeing unification, collaboration, and the willingness to reach out to folks from all backgrounds and philosophies to determine what's best for our kids. To this body and our new superintendent, Dr. Tucker, welcome. I just wanted to say thank you for your service to students, teachers, and families in our community. As I've studied the issues before this board tonight from a distance, I realize there are a lot of passionate citizen viewpoints, and I'm hearing many of them. But I just wanted to say I was most pleased to see this board reach out to citizens for their input on what they want. The recent citizen survey is just a wonderful example. As I was studying the issues before you, I was very interested and frankly surprised to see the results of what our constituents are asking for. And my priority is always to represent the will of our people. So my hope is that they will continue to have an opportunity to let their voice be heard through their vote. So as another Douglas County board member, I will respectfully excuse myself for your independent deliberation as a separate board this evening, but whatever happens here tonight, I hope this body will send a message to excellent teachers and administrators across Colorado and beyond that we welcome you, and in some cases welcome you back to Douglas County, the new beacon of excellence in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Layden. Maggie, Peter Bierbaum, and Jake Miley, and then after them is Christina Courtney.
Good evening, directors.
Good evening.
I'm Maggie Bierbaum. This is my husband, Peter Bierbaum, and this is Jake Miley. We're the steering committee for Bright Futures for Douglas County Kids. We formed Bright Futures in April with the first goal of bringing the community together to ask you to put a bond and mill levy override measure on the ballot. Based on your decision tonight, we will then potentially launch our second goal, which is to campaign for a bond and mill levy override measure to win on the ballot this fall. 2 weeks ago, the 3 of us and many other supporters provided our public comment on why our district needs a bond and mill levy override measure this year. Tonight, we are here to show you the community calls for such a measure. Bright Futures has gathered signatures from, when we left the House, it was 1,564 citizens that support us and our petition of support. Now it's at 1,577. We collected these signatures from our campaign website, brightfutures.nationbuilder.com, also from our Facebook and Twitter sites, and from parent and volunteer outreach into the school since August 8th of this year. Our petition states, Bright Futures for Douglas County Kids, petition of support. The Douglas County School District needs additional resources to serve the students and community. Sign this petition to let the school board know that you support a revenue measure for Douglas County kids for November 2018. We call upon the Douglas County Board of Education to refer a ballot measure to voters for the benefit of our community and our kids. In the interest of preserving the environment, this is our petition that we're showing you tonight. We're not going to provide 10 copies, but instead I'm going to show you what it feels like and looks like to have almost 1,600 supporters.
Okay, as Maggie's doing that, I'll just I'll say some of the feedback has been really good on social media. Ruth says it's worth fighting for the kids to give a quality education. Michael says best investment we can make in the future of our communities. A former educator in Douglas County says, I'm now in Cherry Creek, but you're absolutely right. Our kids need a great education. I'll turn it over to Peter. You've got.
And just before we forget, we want to thank you all for your volunteer service to the community once again. I've got only one point to add to Maggie and Jake's presentation. I hope it's apparent to the board that you have widespread community support here tonight. I've used the last few months to reach out to the community. I've listened to community members from all parties. I've listened to business owners and faith-based leaders. I've listened to principals, leadership at neighborhood and charter schools. I've listened to teachers, parents, and students. I've listened to grandparents and retirees without children. I've even listened to young adults who having kids is the last thing from their minds right at the moment. I have one common thread to share with you, and that this community is ready for excellent schools. We as a community need to adequately fund our schools. Please move forward and place a bond and mill levy override funding measure on the ballot this November. And thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Very good. Thank you, Bright Futures. We appreciate that.
I just wanted to add one plug. Based on the decision tonight, go to our website, brightfutures.nationbuilder.com tonight, and we have a pledge to vote. We will have a pledge to vote place to click and sign tonight based on your decision. Thank you, board.
Christina Courtney is up, and after Christina is Lewis Blackburn. Lewis, very good.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Christina Courtney. I'm a mild mod teacher in the district, and I am a community member. My husband and I live in Parker. DCSD has not passed a mill in 10 years, and this has left the district in a dire state. I want to address the board and community regarding why we should have a mill levy/bond. As most of you know, the district recently lost a case that made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Without going into specifics on that case, I'm here to say we need to start supporting students with special needs within the special education department now. Here are some of the struggles my department is facing. We have lost 1 day a week of mental health due to a staff reduction from 1.0 to 0.8. Learning specialists have been reduced from 2 full-time teachers to 1.5. We've also lost full-time EA support. Our severe needs program has a growing caseload with intense needs while suffering a loss of educational assistance. Our speech-language pathologist also lost her speech-language pathology assistant. These reductions negatively impact students, and that is not okay. Personally, my caseload will likely surpass the district's 1 to 25 ratio by mid-October, early November. When asked about the procedure for dealing with staffing increases, I've been instructed to be creative. We have to have appropriate allocation of teachers so that students with special needs can be supported. Like Rachel, I was so inspired by what she said. We need to have teachers receive training in dyslexia intervention, and in order to do that, service time needs to be allocated for these students, and in order for that to happen, appropriate FTE needs to be allocated. Right now, we currently do not have vocational programs for students in the district who have special needs. This is not acceptable, and I really believe that we need to put these students first. Another reason we need to have a mill levy/bond is because students need to access quality resources. Because the district is lagging in funds, I have done the following to get resources like books and classroom materials that my students need. I have done crowdfunding through Donors Choose and GoFundMe to raise money for a $3,000 reading curriculum. This involves hanging signs in coffee shops, paying crowdfunding agencies to get my project out there, fundraising through family and friends. All because the budget is not there. I tutored during the year and during the summer. I spent $2,000 of my own money last year to help support our students. This is not okay. I should not have to do this. The other reason why we need to have a mill/bond is we need to retain quality teachers and administration. Turnover is at an all-time high, and we have lost many due to issues surrounding salary and the pay band system. Teachers in Douglas County make $17,000 less than those in Cherry Creek. Many teachers are resorting to tutoring, taking second and third jobs in order to keep working in this community. We have also lost good administrators. I lost 2 phenomenal administrators and 3 professional learning specialists because they were able to receive higher salaries elsewhere. I currently have 2 phenomenal administrators at my school who work so hard every day, and I worry that someday too they will leave. I see them try to do all they can each and every day to support students and teachers, even though they have to do more with less. I watch them put us first, but who is taking care of them and putting them first? We need to continue to fight for them. Like a couple of people ago, I wanted to comment on classified staff. They are truly the heart of our district. I know you guys have heard that many times over, but because of that, they deserve to be properly compensated for this. I encourage you to put students first and move forward with the mill levy and bond. Students, teachers, and administrators are depending on this. Thank you for taking the time to hear my voice.
Thank you, Ms. Courtney. Lewis Blackburn. After Mr. Blackburn is Kelly Pointer. And Kelly, if you're in the room again, if you would come on down to the first row. Thank you. There she is.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening.
Mr. Blackburn, can we just check to make sure that your microphone is on? Do you have a red light there?
The green light.
A green, yeah, okay.
Is that
green.
better?
You got it.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. The first thing I wanted to say, I was here during the work session, and you are absolutely on track with building community in the county, in the district, in general. Now, one of the best ways we can do that is to support this mill levy. One of the best ways to create community is to keep our teachers here. To do that, they need to be properly compensated. As you've heard several people say, the average salary in Douglas County is well below other districts that border us just to the north. It's about $3,000 less than it is in Jeffco, about $10,000 less than it is in Littleton, and is an even larger discrepancy in Cherry Creek. We want to keep them here. A mill levy and a bond will bring new construction, new technology, increases in salary, and also other professional development opportunities to do things like special ed and work with all the kids in our district. That's the best way to keep teachers here. I can give you an example. In Inglewood, just to the north of here, we've had 2 mill levies in the past decade. They have led to new construction. Teacher recruitment is up. In my daughter's elementary school in particular, teacher retention has gone from 70% to 95% from last school year. And that's based on new construction, new technology, proper salaries, and professional development opportunities. This is how I think we meet your goals of building community here in Douglas County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Kelly Pointer. After Kelly is Patty Hickey.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Pointer, and I've lived in Douglas County since 2009. I have 2 school-age children. One is in middle school here in Douglas County, and the other is in high school in Littleton Public Schools. Having 2 kids in 2 different school districts for the last 4 years has provided me with a very unique perspective. Tonight, you will be voting on whether or not to place a bond and mill levy override, MLO, on the ballot. Douglas County School District needs additional funding just to keep up with neighboring districts. I mentioned that one of my children attends Littleton schools. As a result of its MLO, Littleton currently has $1,433 more in funding dollars per student than Douglas County School District does. And this is a result of a local funding measure, not state funding. Unlike high school students in Douglas County, my Arapahoe High School son hasn't had classes cut because his school couldn't hire enough teachers. I have seen the positive difference that additional funding in our schools can make. I want this for my 7th grade son, as well as all students here in Douglas County Schools. Our funding and needs in Douglas County School District are large. We have both capital and operational funding needs, and we are well past the point of being efficient. Continuing to ignore the capital needs of our district places a huge burden on future residents. Are any of our bonds nearing expiration? If so, that might be a way to make a new bond more favorable to the public, depending on the amount that is expiring versus a new bond amount. I have reviewed the proposed chart that shows the different bond and MLO options and how much it would cost the taxpayer annually, which I prefer to break down by month. It is my understanding that based on the average home value of $474,000 in Douglas County, a $250 million bond and a $30 million MLO would cost $13 a month, which is $156 a year. A $300 million bond and a $50 million MLO would cost $23 a month, or $274 a year. This is a difference of only $10 a month for a lot more local funding for our schools. Your decision is never that simple, though. We have a lot of catching up to do. I recommend that you place a bond and mill levy override on the ballot. Give Douglas County voters a choice and let them decide this November. I trust that you and Dr. Tucker will use any and spend any additional funding wisely. Our kids, teachers, and staff deserve more. We can do this, and I would be one of the many parents and community members who would work tirelessly to get a bond and mill levy override passed in Douglas County. We must get more money into our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pointer. Patty Hickey, and then after Patty is Daniel Smith. Daniel, if you're in the room, please come on down.
Good evening. Thank you for having me up here. I'm excited to share with you a little bit of a compliment from Maggie and Peter's presentation of the petition. I would like to share with you some of the comments that were written on the petition online. So they're kind of disjointed, so it's just all from different people. We need to invest in our children and communities. Our schools have suffered too long. I am a former highly effective Douglas County School District teacher who left to teach in Cherry Creek with much more competitive pay and benefits and none of the headache, toxic nature, and hostility of a pay-for-performance charade, of which I excelled at. It was super hard to leave my school, colleagues, students, and families, but at the same time, I had to consider supporting my own family. Douglas County has phenomenal kids, teachers, and schools. I highly support pushing a ballot measure to keep them competitive with Cherry Creek and other districts. As a longtime educator, I certainly support a vigorous effort to raise the standards in Douglas County and to find a way to bring in more money for increasing teacher salaries and to repair the infrastructure in many of the schools. When I retired from Littleton High School, I subbed for 21 years in Douglas County schools. I want to help. Since 1976, I have worked as a principal, a teacher, and now a substitute in the Parker area of Douglas County. My sons graduated from Ponderosa and Chap. They both received an excellent education, which prepared my older son to be the chief operating officer of a New York City-based tech company, and my younger son to become the managing partner of a Southern California law firm. I have seen many excellent Douglas County administrators and teachers move to adjoining school districts because they offered superior pay and work conditions. For many years, Douglas County was equal or superior to any other school district in Colorado, and with adequate funding, we can now become that again. DCSD has delayed a tax revenue increase for too long. Both of my children have graduated from DCSD, but I support the revenue measure. Additional funding for the classroom is appropriate and needed, including science, technology, literature, music, etc. For our country to have a bright future, for our county to have a bright future, we must fund our children in education now. We need our funding to keep up with the neighboring districts. Our kids, teachers, and staff deserve more. We can do this. Let's restore lost programming, make teacher salaries competitive, and repair and modernize our buildings. Douglas County deserves the best. There needs to be more opportunity for students seeking to develop skills in the trades. It's a legitimate and lucrative career path for many. Please, please help us provide the strongest education possible for our children. We need to close the pay gap for our amazing teachers just as much as we need to maintain our aging buildings. Give the voters the option. Douglas County needs to pass a bond mill levy in order for our property values to remain high, regardless if one has children in the system. Our school district reflects our neighborhoods. As you can see, there's many more, which I didn't get to, and there's a lot more written on here, and I'll just leave that for your viewing pleasure. So I hope you can readily support this as the community's voice and the 68,000 students here in Dougco. Please consider this initiative by placing it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickey. Daniel Smith. After Daniel are the three amigos, Will, Ansh, and Modolani.
Hi there. Thank you all very much for having me. This is my first time here. I get the sense a lot of people here have been here before. I'm a BOE rookie, so I very much appreciate the service of all of you. This is really simple. Douglas County is the wealthiest and the best educated county in the state of Colorado. We're one of the 10 wealthiest and best educated counties in the United States. Right now, we rank 156th out of 158 Colorado counties in what we spend per student. That's just dumb. Please put a significant revenue measure on the ballot for this November and let the voters decide. How much? I leave that question in your all's hands. I like the way Dr. Tucker framed it when I've heard him say several times now, reasonable requests at reasonable intervals. Please pick a dollar amount that's reasonable for all of us. The only question then, I think, that's left is what to do about Amendment 73, which might have some taxes for people if it passes, and will probably have some revenue implications for us if it passes, but nobody knows if it's going to pass or what those implications are going to be. If we want a number that seems reasonable to all of Douglas County, this might be an unpopular suggestion with some of the people here in this room, but I would encourage you all to think about splitting the difference. Maybe if you're going to go for a $40 million MLO is sort of the number that the board arrives at, maybe you ask for 45 million MLO if 73 doesn't pass, and a 35 million MLO if it does. I think that'd be a valuable accommodation and a bold move towards mending some of the fences that I think have had a few segments smashed out in the last 10 years of some of the political infighting on this board. Thank you very much for your service, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Will Holtzman, Ansh Desai, and Modolani Oyewale.
All right, we've already come up here to talk a bit so you guys know who we are. So this year, the board has the opportunity to put the bond and mill levy override on the ballot for the first time in years. And as former DCSD students, we think that we can provide a new perspective and really emphasize the need for this to pass in our community, or at least to have it on the ballot. In the past few years, our schools have struggled to compete with neighboring school districts. I think we've already had a lot of people come up here and tell us the difference the difference in wages. And one problem with this is that a lot of teachers leave our schools, and that causes two main problems. One is that it's very hard for students who are applying to college to get very good relationships with teachers to write teacher recommendations. And two, it leads to destructions of the school community. And I know that and I can tell you from experience that the first one is very important. From talking to some of the admissions counselors of schools that I got into, they all talked about how having a teacher's perspective on my personality and who I am was really an important factor in helping me get into the schools that I got to. So that's a very important thing for students to be able to have that connection.
Another major problem is that because we don't have school funding, we lose
several programs, such as one program Will and I went on. We stayed in China for 5 weeks abroad and studied in a Chinese school. And we've seen that program slowly die over the years with a lack of funding. Our entire Chinese program at Legend High School was in danger of dying, and that's why I had to do that community service project I was talking about earlier, because a middle school Chinese teacher left, that left a gap. No students had registered for Chinese. Our high school program was in danger of dying out. So we really can't emphasize the need for funding.
And these programming challenges with the Chinese program have started long before we even got to high school. When we were at Pine Lane in 5th and 6th grade, I remember the band practice was moved from being a during school activity to being outside of school hours, and there was no transportation provided. So students whose parents couldn't transport them to school either early or late for band practice just couldn't participate. And even worse than that, the band practices used to not have a fee associated with them, but eventually there was a fee, so you had to actually pay to participate in this extracurricular school activity, which was such a valuable opportunity that so many students couldn't take advantage of anymore. And then also DCSD's lack of funding has contributed to the loss of class time. We were all required to take off periods during high school, even if we didn't really want to. This prevented us from taking more courses, which would have helped us be better prepared for college. And so this is something else that's really important, especially for our high school students. And so it's really important that we come together as a community and at least put these measures onto the ballot and, of course, preferably pass them, because this is something our district really needs. And if we don't pass this year, then these problems that we've seen in our schools will just continue to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Randy Preble. Also, just as Randy's coming up, those of you that weren't here earlier, these three individuals are Douglas County products, and two of them are Betcher scholars. So again, wonderful to see the two of you again, or three of you again. Randy Preble. After Randy is Dr. Bill Larson.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the board tonight. My name is Randy Preble, and I'm a local 9-year resident of Parker, where I live with my lovely wife, Lisa, and 2 young boys. I stand before the gathered crowd and board tonight representing many different constituencies of Douglas County, but with one clear message, and that is to request the board to approve and put on the November ballot a comprehensive and thoughtful revenue investment proposal, allowing the citizens of Douglas County the opportunity to express and demonstrate our support for our schools, our teachers, and most importantly, the kids of Douglas County. I respectfully ask the board to take such action as a 20-year member of the business community, where I work as a corporate finance executive for a multi-billion-dollar customer experience company headquartered in Douglas County. From that perspective, I view this initiative as an appropriate, timely, and much-needed investment into Douglas County, and a signal to local businesses that we are serious about raising the thought leaders and qualified, hardworking, and well-educated workforce of tomorrow. I also stand before you all tonight as a first-time civically engaged citizen of Douglas County who feels compelled to request such action by my firsthand observations of the aging and dilapidated conditions of our community's school facilities, as well as the stress cracks they are showing as we struggle to keep up with growth. I again stand before you tonight as a father of 2 young boys who has witnessed in a few short years the unprecedented and costly turnover and exit of teachers and principals, many very dear to my boys and all students alike at my local schools. And finally, I stand before you all tonight requesting action as a citizen neighbor whose own life was shaped, transformed, and ultimately realized through my receipt of a high-quality, well-funded, and consciously invested in education by the generations before me and my childhood community. At the time of my education, I took for granted the investment that the community at large was making in me and my fellow classmates. But now it is clear that the lesson learned from that earlier investment in me is to become aware and act on the need to pay that investment forward when it is my turn, by supporting the highest quality educational experience for our community's kids of today and the generation of tomorrow. That means attracting and keeping the highest quality teachers, providing a top-notch, broad-based 21st century curriculum, and doing so in facilities that reflect the values we wish to instill in our children: safety, support, curiosity, and opportunity. As we as a community seek to raise bright, respectful, hardworking children, let us not lose sight of perhaps the most important lesson we can impart onto them, and that is that our actions will speak louder than our words, and our actions of investing in our kids can and will demonstrate our belief in them, and in turn teach them that such investment is what binds a community together and will compel them to a life of good community stewardship and perpetuate the cycle of paying it forward. To conclude, I respectfully request the Douglas County School Board to give me and my fellow citizens that chance to invest in our kids and communities by placing a bond and MLO revenue package on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preble. Dr. Larson. After Dr. Larson is Ed Harris.
Good evening. I was principal of Ponderosa High School for 17 years from 1985 to my retirement in 2002. I have lived in the Pinery for the past 32 years. I am here as a proud member of the Bright Futures for Douglas County Kids Committee. It was formed after Douglas County citizens, and I believe it was Maggie and Peter and Jake, studied funding information for the district. They became alarmed at the significant need for a bond and mill levy override to keep schools excelling and to keep up with other Colorado school districts. As a school board, I am confident that you also saw this need. Bright Futures wants to support you in placing a bond and mill levy override on the November ballot at a mill rate you deem necessary at this time. We will work to help you pass this issue. A new school board was elected about 10 years ago that had an agenda different from what was here since the district was formed in the 60s. I came to Ponderosa after 9 years as House 4 principal at a high school in Cherry Creek School District. I heard loud and clear that Douglas County was a fast-growing district and wanted to be as excellent as Cherry Creek. Over my 17 years, I shared often that I had the best high school principal job in Colorado. I had the best students, I had the best parents, teachers, support staff, and school board. There were days when I would gladly pay you for the job I had. There was a strong sense of family, trust, and mutual support across the district, and we were highly competitive in schooling. Much of this changed with the new school board. They did not choose to have a bond and mill levy override when needed, and financed their ideas by cutting back on programs, salaries, capital improvement, and new construction. Major changes that concerned me the most included canceling the teacher union contract, increasing the number of classes secondary teachers taught, and going to a merit pay structure. And you should read into that pay cut or freeze for teachers. These actions were just a few of many that destroyed a sense of family, trust, and mutual support. Teachers and administrators that I knew left as soon as they could find an opening elsewhere. It was the quality of the teacher administrator leaving that was alarming. The biggest yearly responsibility I had as principal was to make sure the best teachers available were in every classroom. We were an excellent school district, and we had the choice of the best teacher candidates. Today, hiring the best would be very difficult. The best would not apply. A university student-teacher supervisor told me one student-teacher candidate asked not to be placed in Douglas County. Steve Covey wrote a best-selling book in 1989 about the 7 habits of highly successful people and organizations. The 4th habit was win-win. A school district cannot be successful if it is political and is only I win and you lose. The 6th habit was synergy, which seeks to combine the strengths of people through teamwork and trust so as to achieve goals that no one could achieve alone. Becoming competitive in teacher salaries should be the board's first action after we pass the bond and mill levy override. The second would be to implement habits of win-win and synergy, with the first step of restoring the teacher union contract. Passing a bond and mill levy override and providing a school district where all feel valued and trusted should be the goals for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Larson. Ed Harris. After Ed Harris is Kamala Vanderkolk.
Thank you, everybody, for letting me come in and speak to you, Board of Education and new Superintendent Tucker. Thank you very much. I also want to say thank you to Maggie and Peter and Jake for a great job that they're doing in the district trying to move this forward. Who am I? My grandkids are in the legend feeder pattern. I've got one in 2nd grade, one in 6th grade, one in 9th grade. So we got all the bases covered. I live in Pinery West. I'm in the Ponderosa feeder pattern, like the principal that was up here talking before. I've lived here for only 2 years. And outside of my comfort zone was coming here without a job. But my wife said, we got to be near the grandchildren, so that's why I'm here. I come from I've worked in 5 states, 10 school districts, and I'm a veteran of 5 successful bond issues. And so I'm asking myself, maybe I can help here. And so the thing is what is my message? My message to you is there hasn't been any relief in this district in my research since before 2006. That means if you don't do something about it, you're on the decline. People can complain all they want to, but guess what? We're in charge now. We are in charge now, and we've got to decide what's going to be our legacy. And we must be aggressive in fighting for our kids. We can't back off. We can't say, well, maybe we'll accept this. You got to go for it now. Be aggressive, be on top of it. We have to make sure that we are fighting for our kids, that we are fighting and embracing for our teachers, that we are having support for our administrators and our support staff. I don't even understand what this business is about you don't have nurses in buildings. That's amazing to me. And as I talk to people around the district, I'm finding that there are lots of things like that that are a problem. And even more, we've got to support the Board of Education. The citizens behind me here, we've got to support the superintendent. It's so important that we do these things and let people know that we are behind them and we support them. These are courageous board members. And I've been on superintendents' committees, the superintendent's council for many years. But let me leave you with one thing. I was an old social studies teacher, and we used to do quotes. And one of the main quotes that I like to work with was after the attack on Pearl Harbor, everyone was excited in the opposing Navy. And they went up, they were having a party, and they went up to the leader. And they said to him, why aren't you excited? He said, because I fear that we have awakened the sleeping giant. And that's what we have to do today. All these people out here, sleeping giant. We have to awaken them and let them know that we are fighting for our kids, we are fighting for our board, and we are fighting for our superintendent, and we are fighting for our teachers and our administrators in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Kamala? I went with Kamala or Kamala. I'm always forget which one. Kamala. 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 All right, welcome. And after Kamala is Darian Wilson. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you to the school board and Dr. Tucker for taking public comments considering a mill levy override and bond measure. My name is Kamala Vanderkolk. I live in Roxborough and am a mom to 2 kids, classes of 2027 and 2030, as well as a host mom and local supervisor to over a dozen high school exchange students from around the world the past 3 years. I won't talk about the year that my autistic son was bused by himself 40 minutes one way to a high-needs preschool in Castle Rock for free because federal laws protect his access to education. But my daughter was billed $150 to ride the school bus along with 30 other kids to the neighborhood elementary school 2 miles away. I won't talk about the time when my son was 3 and I was told by multiple Douglas County schools that per his medical diagnosis, he was not welcome to apply for charter school lotteries, making it clear that school choice is a myth for anyone outside the norm. I won't talk about all the generous families who were denied hosting a high school exchange student, which would bring much needed diversity to our community and promote international connections, because the high schools are too full and getting fuller every year with no relief in sight. I won't talk about how the state mandates our high schools offer 1,080 hours of instruction annually, but somehow the district considers study hall to count as teacher-pupil instruction time, or how it is common for students to be denied or discouraged from taking a full schedule. And I certainly won't talk about how Mark Baisley is the reason our school district is in this mess, and he is now running for State House of Representatives for District 39, which includes most of Douglas County, and how I am doing everything I can to defeat him for that seat. I will talk about the future. My kids, like everyone else, are full of potential. It is our job as parents and educators to help them realize that potential and ensure they become productive members of society. I understand that vocational and career training programs have been nearly abandoned in our district, not because of stigma or lack of interest, but because of cost. My daughter, while only in 4th grade, is likely going to follow the college prep path that is readily available to her, with at least a $160,000 price tag after. My son may or may not follow the same path. His struggles with school are not unique. For all the kids who don't want to spend high school preparing for more school, we need to ensure they get an education that includes skills that make them hireable. Our district has an obligation to ensure that all of our students have real-world skills and opportunities after graduation. My name is Kamala Vanderkolk, and I'm in full support of putting both the bond and mill levy overrides on the ballot this November. As I consider both to be necessary investments in our students and our county's long-term success, because the choice for our families shouldn't be crushing student debt or living in mom and dad's basement forever. I hope to share the ballot with your measure in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vanderkolk. Is Darian Wilson here? I don't see Darian. All right, we'll go on to Joey Quintana. After Joey Quintana is Tanya Lung. Oh, is Darian? There she is. Are you speaking on? You're speaking on behalf. I know that's not Darian, but an imposter.
Well, Darian said that we look alike, so maybe you guys wouldn't notice the difference.
So I take it you're in place of Darian Wilson tonight.
I am.
All right, Mrs. and Stacy Chamati.
Yes. Good evening, directors. I'm Stacy Chamati from the community group Douglas County Parents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We'd like to thank Dr. Tucker and staff for the informative presentation on bond and mill levy override scenarios at the last meeting. What resonated with us was Dr. Tucker's phrase, reasonable asks at reasonable intervals. We fully agree. Where we might differ, however, is that we believe a larger bond and MLO is a reasonable request of the community right now. It has been a very long time since we last asked the taxpayers of Douglas County to provide local funds for our school district. We have aging buildings in need of repair, teachers that are being paid nearly $20,000 less than neighboring districts according to the CDE, and large inequities between many schools in the same district. In short, our kids need this money and they need it quickly. Kids don't get a second chance at their education, and we'd like to see the best opportunities made available to our 68,000 students. We have heard from many members in the community about how they would like to see MLO funds used. We have heard that parents would like school fees to be minimized, supply lists shortened, bus fees eliminated, and a return of activity buses for after-school activities, and more comprehensive programming. Additionally, there is a pressing need for more instructional support and better pay for the support staff. This cannot all be done with a small MLO. With the list of needs and wants so large, it seems that a $50 million MLO would be a great start. If the community is telling us they would be willing to vote for a larger amount of money while knowing the monthly cost it would bring, we think this is a great reason to not only vote yes tonight to put a bond and MLO on the ballot, but also to vote yes on an amount that could make the biggest impact in our students' lives. We once heard the Long Range Planning Committee say that if we had $1 billion, we could spend it all and still not address every need in the district. Professional polling shows that many in the community are ready to vote yes to a local funding initiative this fall. The polling results also show a willingness to vote for a larger bond. 59% of respondents said they would vote yes to a $392 million bond, whereas 56% of those polled said they would vote yes for a $292 million bond. Thank you for considering the inclusion of a bond and MLO on this November's ballot. We fully support both, and will do everything we can to reach the community about this important ballot measure. If you do vote yes tonight, we respectfully ask you to consider asking for a larger amount. Our kids have waited so long. It is time to make this right for them. And I want to leave you with one parting thought, and that is, the last time we received local funding from Douglas County, the class of 2019, our current seniors had just started kindergarten. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schmati. Joey Quintana, and after Joey is Tanya Lung. Tanya, if you want to come up to the front too, that'd be great.
Hello, my name is Joey Quintana, and I'm a junior at Thunder Ridge High School, and I'm here alongside Bright Futures for Douglas County students. To start off, I would just like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of the students of Douglas County. As I've grown up in this wonderful community, attending Douglas County schools since preschool, I've noticed change over the years. I've noticed bigger class sizes, increase in fees, fewer classes that I want to take being offered in my school, and finally, the loss of many great teachers from our district. Sitting in a class with 30 or more students makes it hard for many students, including me, to get one-on-one time with my teacher to be able to fully comprehend a subject that I may be struggling with. This causes problems not only now, but in the future when I get behind on my work because I never fully, completely understood that subject. Another thing that I've noticed in my schools is that many classes that I want to take are not being offered. This is not just a problem that I'm facing. Many other students that I've talked to have noticed the same thing. Every student is different. They have different hobbies and interests. And without offering these classes that they would like to take, this could very well impact their futures. I spent a lot of time talking about the classes that students would love to see being offered at our schools. And with the mill levy override, these problems can be fixed. And finally, I would like to talk about one teacher who's truly touched my heart. I have had numerous amazing teachers over the years who've done so much for me, but Ms. Radfeld was one that has truly impacted my life. Ms. Radfeld was a science teacher at Thunder Ridge High School, who, like many other teachers, did a wonderful job of teaching. But she didn't just teach us biology. She gave us lessons in life that I will always carry with me. Ms. Radfeld spent time out of her day making a connection with each one of her students, getting to know their hobbies, interests, and so much more. She was the one person I and many other students knew that we could go talk to with a problem, and she would drop anything to help us out. This past year, Ms. Radfeld has left to go work for another district. This is not the first time I have had a wonderful teacher leave to go work for another district. And I believe that this has happened too many times to students all across Douglas County. So I stand here today to ask you to say yes for this mill levy override to be on this ballot. Not just for our students now, but for our students of the future. The choices that are being made now will greatly impact the future. So again, please say yes for the future of these amazing Douglas County students. Thank you once again for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Quintana. Tanya Lung. Coming up, Tanya, and after Tanya is Tim Krug. And Tanya, you want to introduce your sidekick as well?
So my name is Tanya. I was previously a student at Rock Canyon, Rocky Heights High School. And this is...
I'm a current student there, Charisma Leon.
Very good.
And we just noticed that in our time at Douglas County High School, teachers were constantly coming in and out. They're pretty much dropping like flies. Like, we just didn't know where they were going.
In my experience, I had these really two great teachers. I can still remember what they taught me. And like halfway through the year, he just left. Like, it was really abruptly, and we were left with this subpar substitute. And then when I started when I started 7th grade, I learned that my other favorite teacher in 6th grade also left. And it just like made me wonder why all these amazing teachers were leaving.
And I just wanted to comment that I was probably one of the top students in my year, and I was pretty much just taking AP classes left and right. And I knew that the reason for this was because we had really good teachers at my school. And the difference between a good teacher and a bad teacher is staggering. A good teacher knows like how in-depth to go for each subject, how far to study, and just the right amount of toughness to get students ready for their AP exams. New teachers, they just don't know this. I've seen like teachers drop out and get replaced by green teachers, and I've seen just like even the smartest students just fail these AP exams because they just don't know how to teach them. And one of probably the biggest things I feel like our schools did take a hit on was our Chinese classes. I know that in our middle schools right now that Chinese just got completely canceled. It's like not even an option available for students to take, yeah. And I know that in comparison, I had a friend who like went to school in Colorado Springs, and she had a variety of like language to take. She could take like German, French, Spanish, and like even like Japanese. Meanwhile, we like I guess in middle school only now have like Spanish and French as an option.
Yep. Oh, also in the middle schools, our 2 drama teachers left, so that really took a hit on our like music and arts situation. Plus, it's like why did they also leave too? It's just a big question.
And I just know that teachers too in this district are super passionate about teaching. I had this one teacher who literally cried about having to leave because she just, like, it was kind of like a well-known fact. She just like wasn't getting paid enough. And what was just really sad about this is that we knew that she loved the students at the school, we knew she loved the community, and that she loved the area, but it was clear that honestly, the county just did not love her. And we were just hoping that by coming here, we can encourage the county that prides itself on academic excellence to be able to pretty much afford to pay our teachers and teach languages that both seem pretty readily available in all other school districts. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, both of you. You see this proud father to my right smiling. There's a reason for that. All right, Mr. Krug, and then after Tim Krug is Les Lilly. Welcome.
Good evening, directors. I just want to interject and say this is easily the most excited I've ever been at one of your board meetings. There's so much civic engagement going on, and I've never seen this many students taking part in what's going on here, and I don't think this is going on anywhere else. As you said, my name is Tim Krug, and I'm here as a homeowner and as a parent to 2 current Douglas County students, and as of 7 weeks ago, a 3rd future Douglas County graduate. I'm very involved and very interested in the future of our schools, not so much the past. As you know, I'm also a candidate for the State Board of Education, and I wanted to share with you and the community some of the things that I've been learning and seeing as I've traveled around to dozens of other districts in Colorado. And the district I'm in is mostly comprised of small rural districts. And I think it's fair to say when it comes to school funding that the small districts in Colorado are kind of like the canary in the coal mine. And the very scary headlines that you read about that's going on in our rural schools, I think that you can predict that these are things that we're going to see here in the Front Range. One really big example is the 4-day school week. I don't think most people know, but more than half of the districts in Colorado, over 100 of the 180 districts, are now on a 4-day school week. And they are not on it by choice. They have been forced into it by a funding crunch. And for a long time, I think we felt immune to this here in Douglas County because it is mostly happening to small rural districts. But as of this year, District 27J, which is mostly in Adams County, it is just North Denver, It is considered one of the 15 metro districts. They have nearly 18,000 students, and this year they went on to a 4-day school week. This should be a huge red flag for the citizens of Douglas County. This can happen here. And there are studies that correlate a 4-day school week with an increased crime rate. There are studies that correlate a 4-day school week with increased drug and alcohol abuse by minors. And those are quantifiable things. I think there's some ambiguous negatives that come with it as well that we need to think about. What happens when a teacher has one less day a week to take a student aside and give them a little support in a lesson that maybe they're having difficulty with? Or what happens when a principal has 1 day less a week to notice suspicious bruises showing up on a student that's coming into school? And what happens when our already overworked social workers and special education professionals have 1 day less a week to give support, guidance, and help to students who are going through a very, very stressful time in their lives? And for those who think that we can save money if we don't fund schools, they should heed the words of Mark Twain, the famous author, who said, "Every time you stop a school, you will have to open a jail. The gains you see on one end will be taken from the other. It's like feeding a dog its own tail. It will not fatten the dog." So I very much support a bond and MLO, and thank you so much for all the hard work you guys have been doing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krug. Les Lilly. After Les Lilly is Gary Colley.
Wow, why is it that Gary and I always tag team here? Thank you, President Ray and directors again. I too support the FOC recommendations for a proposed bond and mill levy override. And I may vote and actually campaign for it. But I'm concerned. What am I concerned about? 3 things. First of all, target compensation adjustments. In the mill levy override option of $40 million, you have $17 million targeted for compensation adjustments. But yet when you flip over the page in the targeted compensation adjustments, it says the following may be included in the proposed $17 million. Don't like the word may. It's like me saying I may vote for a mill levy bond override. But saying that these, $17 million may be included, and obviously one of the things that we talked about was the pay freeze adjustments that 2 of you had brought up at the last board meeting, and staff was aware, and staff and I had talked about that. So anyway, that's a concern. The second concern I have is in buses. As you know, I drive a bus, and I've been doing it for 37 years, and I love it. The kids are awesome. But in Tier 1, there's a lot of specifics mentioned for sped buses. And yes, we need sped buses. A lot of that transportation is mandated. But we need jet ed buses. I'm pushing a bus down the road that's got 254,000 miles on it, and it's a young one. We got buses, pushing up almost 500,000 miles. And in that, what I would suggest is, I invited, Dr. Tucker last spring to do a ride-along. I would invite any of you to do a ride-along, or maybe come out to Fleet and Transportation and do a little site visit and see what we're up against. The other thing in the buses, more so under transportation, is the elimination of the bus fee. I mean, we've heard some conversation about that. The elimination of the fee is not in there, the $2 million, and I'm kind of curious as to what happened with that, because I'm here to tell you, as someone who deals with this daily, that there's a lot of lost revenue that we haven't captured, and it's Pandora's box, but I'm informing you that there's a lot of kids that are riding free and some kids aren't, and it has nothing to do with special ed. It has to do with a mechanism that we had in place to capture lost revenue that disappeared last February, and there's been tens of thousands of dollars that have been lost, and that's going to probably continue for another couple of months. So with that, transportation, it's been one of the roughest rides to begin a school year in the 37 years that I've been pushing the bus up and down the road. I love it, but it's been a rough start. There's a lot of unhappy employees. There's a lot of unhappy parents with the changes in transportation. There's a lot of unhappy kids. I think the kids are going to weather the ride a lot better than we are. But that's just because kids are resilient. But anyway, I would suggest that maybe at some time in the very near future, the board or the staff consider some kind of transportation oversight committee to get us back to the days where we did have activity buses. That ran at 5 o'clock, or we had the band buses that have been so highly regarded, and not only get staff in the district back up to par, but transportation as being a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Gary Colley. And after Gary, I believe if Cindy Sovine has arrived, she was on our list earlier, but Cindy, if you are here, come on down to the front after Mr. Colley.
Well, I'm here to encourage you guys to move forward with the bond mill levy. And as you know, for one thing, my background is I'm a Douglas County resident of 33 years. My wife and I built our home in Parker in 1985. I've been a teacher since 1975. Served in the military prior to starting my education. And one thing that I've been focused on throughout my career in education was kids. Kids are the best part of everything. And I always add to that, they eventually become adults and it becomes a pain in the neck. But, we've got 68,000 kids that next, we're going to lose some of them, but next year we're going to be up to that number again, if not more. And if we don't do something about making a serious decision about funding, we're going to put a lot of kids at risk that don't need to be at risk. I got involved in, after I retired from teaching and began to realize what was going on in Douglas County, I became involved to try to create change with the school board that would allow us to have effective leadership. And look what we have. And by the way, I'm not saying it was me or it wasn't anybody except a large community that became equipped and empowered to use their voice. And that's the focus of the CAC, is to get parents and community members to understand that you can't be a passive voice. And they can't be a passive voice in an atmosphere like we have today. We've got a phenomenal leadership right now in our school district. There's no reason in the world we couldn't pass a significant bond mill levy going into this upcoming election. And what I would strongly encourage is, I'm one of those 70%ers, the ones that don't have the kids in the schools, and I'm actually that same age myself as well. And I know one thing, if I started doing this in front of you guys right now, after you know what's happened to me over the past 3 weeks, would you know what I'm doing? I'm rocking our grandchild, because it's how, and watching her as she looks around at all the different shades and stuff like that. I was even in the back standing like this, so I don't know if I've got a persistent habit. But the challenge is that the people that don't have kids anymore are in some way related to someone that has kids. If they're not related family-wise, they're related in their passion for younger people. And that's what we need to touch on, is not just what these numbers are and what we need in the school, but just help people understand that it's okay. It's okay for them to just support something because it supports the lives of kids. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do when I'm out talking in the next couple months here, is getting people to know, hey, if you're a teacher, how many aunts and uncles and cousins and friends and relatives do you know that don't have kids in the district but still vote? We'll talk to them about that. That's the emphasis. Let's touch the heart, but let's be very aggressive in what we're doing. I am so proud of this school board, and when you put the icing on the cake with Dr. Tucker, to me, you sealed the deal. So I'm not going to wish you the best, because it's going to be the best. You got a great community behind you. I wish you to go for the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colley. Cindy Sovine.
Thank you so much for making time for me. My name is Cindy Sovine. I am from Golden, Colorado. I was actually at my Jeffco curriculum night for my first grader and got down here as quickly as I could. But I was not able to go with Amber and Sarah. I'm here today representing their children and other families for House Bill 1286 to update your policy for medical marijuana and students. I am a professional lobbyist, and for most of my career I worked for the pharmaceutical industry and the hospital industry until my dad's journey with lymphatic cancer and subsequent treatment with medical marijuana. I've since then switched in a lot of my roles, and I do a lot of pro bono work for the medical marijuana community. The original Jack's Law, which you guys were absolute pioneers in implementing a policy for young children, was 2 years ago a bill that I worked on, and this year with House Bill 1286, we were able to get 86 out of 100 legislators to vote in support of asking you to update your policies to allow personnel or volunteers to administer that student's medical marijuana. These are tinctures and patches, and the requirement is that they come in a zipped or locked bag so that it's not accessible to any child, and it would be stored where the rest of the kids' medicines are stored for nurses, whether it be Tylenol or other things. I've already got a draft policy that I've looked at from yours for your consideration for your attorneys, and I will facilitate that through Amber in terms of being able to take a look at it. But the hope is that you guys will continue to be pioneers and leaders for your students and the hundreds of kids that have intractable diseases that are being treated by cannabis. And I thank you so much for your leadership in this capacity. I don't need to waste any of your time. I am just grateful for the opportunity to be here before you and to answer any questions that you might have. I am certainly here to be a resource and appreciate all that you've done up to this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Sovine.
Thanks.
All right. So that brings our public comment to a close. Board, I just want to look at your eyes to see if you're able to push forward or if you're desperate of a need for a break. So I'm looking at eyes and I'm seeing shrugs, and we're good? All right, because we've got an audience, and I think it would be respectful if we just continue to move on to our next topic, which is to begin or to finish our discussion around the recommendation that the staff has made to us from last meeting regarding the bond and the MLO. And at this time, I know, board, we had asked several questions, and so I'm going to ask staff to begin with that, following up with those questions that we've asked, and then we'll engage in some discussion as far as how we should move forward. So Mr. Smith, Dr. Tucker, Mr. Knight, and whoever else. As they're getting organized, just again, a big thank you to all of you who have come out and spoken so articulately and expressively in terms of advocating for our students in our district. We are truly impressed with what an incredible community we have. Please, Dr. Tucker.
Director Ray, other directors, our community, and our students, it's my honor, it's my team's honor to give a recap of our staff recommendations for new funding. But before I do that and we situate ourselves for a brief presentation, not only do I want to thank our folks for being here this evening, but also our current students and former students, not so much for the positions that they've taken as they came up to speak, but the way they articulated their points and their comport. Those are Douglas County students. Let's give them a round of applause. Tonight is really where the rubber meets the road, but more importantly, it's about what we stand for. It's about what Douglas County should be for our 68,000 students and our 8,100 employees. Behind the dais is a reminder of the type of business we're in. In the last 31 years, people ask me what type of business that I'm in. I've always said I'm in the people business. I'm in the children's business. So behind each director, behind my staff members seating here, it states we're in the children business. We're reminded of that every board meeting. We're reminded of that every single day. So in summary, in order to shape and support the Douglas County School District's future, we must pass a bond and a mill levy override, an MLO, to equitably invest in our students, schools, staff, and community for the coming 5 years. DCSD staff recommends bond option $250 million and an MLO option of $40 million. $250 million is considered a no new taxes. So if it isn't indeed approved, if we do approve the $250 million bond option, your taxes will not increase. However, you will save approximately $64 total. And an MLO option of $40 million. You may say, why $40 million? We had the option of 30, 40, or 50. We did not want to ask for too much. And I do appreciate several of you repeating what I really believe in. Reasonable requests at reasonable intervals. Reasonable requests at reasonable intervals. At the end of the day, our outstanding board will make a recommendation. We'll vote on it. We'll approve it before the night's up, I promise you. And you, our community, we will go to we'll mail our ballot in and we'll send it in and we'll make the final decision on that. So in essence, a home valued on average for $470,000 would pay an additional $208 a year or $17.33 a month. As was pointed out, the last time we received local tax money was 2006. Yes, we've received some state money, but it's been cut since the Great Depression. And the Constitution here in Colorado states that the state should provide adequate funding for public schools. But over the years, it's been cut. Last year, we did receive approximately $30 million. About 22 point something came to Douglas County, and $7 million went to our charter schools. $22 million to our traditional schools, $7 million to our charter schools. But at the same time, and Scott, correct me, we made about $5 million in cuts, right? So we're going to continue to research and create a plan for future growth, a strategy in which would include the use of land, optimizing our land, our boundary optimization, and new construction. Now, Mr. Knight, would you come up and give some more specifics regarding the $40 million MLO?
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. And I'd like to invite CFO Scott Smith, as well as Amanda Thompson and Mary Chesla to join me. So this is an identical slide that you saw 2 weeks ago that outlines our $40 million recommendation, but we want to get into a little more detail with you tonight. $17 million in targeted compensation adjustments. A majority of those are internal pay gaps. There are some areas in our classified staff where, quite honestly, internal pay gaps aren't enough. We've got to address the external pay gaps, or we're going to continue to lose people. School counselors, adding school counselors at the elementary level and increasing the ratio at the middle and high school levels, and then adding money to our student-based budgeting process to provide further equity and to increase or bring back some of those programmatic offerings that you've heard from our students tonight. And then finally, the $8 million, which is a 100% pass-through of the money that we would receive for students who attend a charter school to go straight to those charter schools. I now want Amanda and Mary to talk a little bit about what specifically we could do with the $17 million in staff adjustments.
Good evening. So the following is a recommendation menu as a starting point in terms of options for targeting much needed compensation adjustments. So overall, there's compensation supports for each employee group, something for everyone, building upon our compensation adjustments for last spring. As we know, this is a broad brush that will take a little bit more time to research, gather more input in order to do the best by all. So decisions around compensation adjustments would support our board end statements and show value for our employees. In terms of our classified staff, amongst all the classified employee groups, we recommend increases to the minimum range starting at 5% and higher, especially for those in hard-to-fill areas, such as our bus drivers, our TEAs, our EA4s, our trades, in order to help us recruit, fill positions, retain, and even be externally competitive to meet the needs of our students and our buildings. In addition, those that experience the pay freeze would have adjustments in a tiered approach based on their years frozen. For example, the tiered would depend upon if you're frozen for 1, 2, or 3 years. In terms of our licensed staff, not addressed already this spring, we would look at making a tiered approach adjustment based on their pay relative to the midpoint for the range. For our school-based administrators, admin, and pro-tech, there would be a 3.5% increase, and then any pay freeze adjustments in a tiered fashion, again, based on their years frozen. Mary, do you want to share any examples in relation to those?
So an example of a classified employee, let's just take an educational assistant who might have been hired in the 09-10 school year, currently making $12.33 an hour. That person would have suffered through 2 years of the pay freeze years. So our proposal would be to add 2% to their pay as of today, 2% of today's rate. We're not looking at going back to the past to make increases on the nominal amounts that might have happened 10, 9, or 8 years ago, but to today's rate. And that would be added after the general raise that we're planning for all classified staff. So 1, 2, or 3%, depending on how many years they were frozen.
Again, this is a starting place in order to begin to address our pay needs.
Would you guys want questions during your presentation, or would you like us to wait till afterwards? Afterwards? Thank you, Dr. Tucker. All right.
Good evening, directors. So in our proposal, we have additional funding for schools. So the first proposal that we have is funding for school counselors. So we would propose about $3.5 million to provide funding for counselors at the elementary level so that they can start building relationships with children early in their school career and help them be ready for the transition into the secondary years. We would also propose increasing funding for counselors at the secondary level to lower the ratio to the national best practice of 1 to 250. And that would cost us approximately $2.5 million to do that. Additionally, as Mr. Knight mentioned, we would propose allocating more funding to schools through our SBB process. The majority of this would be to more equitably fund our schools based on specific student and school needs. So we would propose increasing funding for students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. We would also propose increasing funding for additional gifted talented support so we can see increased scores on AP exams, on IB, earning college credit earlier in their career, having more national merit finalists. That would be the goal of providing those additional supports. Allocating more funding for schools that house center-based programs and responding to what we learned through the Special Education Task Force survey. Increasing equitable funding to schools that have low or declining enrollment. We know we have pockets of our community where there is declining enrollment, especially in the elementary schools, and it creates a real funding challenge. We've tried to solve this through the years through the highly impacted process of allocating additional dollars outside the formula. We want to put those dollars inside the formula and recognize that there are different cost structures in our schools. And then also increasing wellness support at our schools across the spectrum. Additionally, we would propose to allocate $2 million for programs. So programs like CTE. We know that the Parker Chamber has proposed a collaboration with us, and they've even offered to house our new CTE coordinator in a building up in Parker that would work countywide to build relationships between the school district and the business community. So we'd like to see additional staffing, additional funding for other costs, and other programming needs across the district. This is obviously a first start in terms of our school budgeting. This is where I've lived for the past few years, and this would make a great dent in what we know is a challenge that we've been trying to solve over the years. But we think that this would definitely put us on the right track with regards to the way we fund our schools.
As Scott just mentioned, the MLO option will obviously help us get started on making corrections to where we need to. The bond, the $250 million bond, goes a long way in starting to fix our capital needs. A large part of that funding will support our key Tier 1 infrastructure needs, which is roofing, plumbing, HVAC, fire sprinkler controls. It will also support our Tier 2 high needs in all of our buildings. We will be using $61 million towards capital reinvestment, which includes security, district support facilities, bus fleet replacement across the board, playground athletic facilities, things like DC Stadium, Shea Stadium. Also, based on our most recent safety and facility evaluation of charter school facilities, we estimate using $3 to $9 million to support the safety and Tier 1 needs of all our charter building needs. We're looking at $39 million towards capital construction. Just like Scott was talking about programmatic needs changes to CTE, in tandem, we will do capital investment in buying equipment and facility upgrades for our existing facilities in support of CTE programming. We will also be completing our Castleview FPOT so we can build the capacity we need there and adding an alternative high school education facility in the Parker area. We also have Rich here in case we have other questions around the master capital plan or the bond, and we are also available.
And directors, this would in essence allow us to continue to provide safe and healthy learning environments as well as meet the most urgent capacity needs across the district.
Directors, what's in front of you is the menu of options that we have presented. We've highlighted in green what staff's recommendation is, the $40 million mill levy override and the $250 million bond. On a tax basis, that would represent an approximate increase of about 6 mills. So we're at just under 39 mills right now for our total school tax bill. That includes the School Finance Act, our mill levy override, and our bond redemption fund as well. We believe that this, as many people state, a reasonable ask at a reasonable interval to get us down the right path. We're not going to be able to solve everything in one fell swoop, but we believe that at $17 a month or just over $4 a week for the average homeowner in Douglas County, that this is a reasonable request, and that's why staff is proposing the amounts that you see in front of you.
As a recap, without a MLO and bond in 2018, and you've heard this from many of the speakers this evening, school funding stays flat while expenses continue to increase, which will impact programming, class sizes, extracurriculars, etc. And also, as 3 of our recent graduates said, their competitiveness to enter into the colleges or universities of their choice. That's huge. DCSD will continue to struggle in recruiting and retaining quality staff. You've heard that. Transportation and other ancillary services could be reduced to minimum levels. We've talked about that. Can you imagine transportation services becoming even worse? Unmet capital needs will continue to grow and become more expensive and risk extended building closure during emergency repairs. That's a reality. Many of you who have high school students, you know that to be a fact. You know, we've talked a lot over the last several weeks about unity of purpose. 68,000 students, regardless of where they attend school, 8,100 staff members, regardless of your classification, regardless of what we believe about school funding, whether we don't have enough money or we have too little money. This is about Douglas County School District. This is about the future of our county. This is about everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. Thank you, staff, as well. Board, I'll open this up for questions now in terms of the presentation that we just saw. Are there questions? Director Lemieux?
Before we take time to ask questions, would it be prudent for us to vote on whether or not we're even going to ask for a bond MLO first and then ask questions if we do that to decide the amounts? Because at this point, we don't even know if we're going to put one on the ballot.
Sure. I'd like to have us ask for questions for clarification because our motions are going to be contingent on certain amounts of money. And so I think what we want to do is make sure we have it clear in our mind before we go to a motion whether or not, what does the 250 mean, what does a 300 mean, so that when we do make a motion, it's specific to that amount. Does that make sense? Director Lemieux, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So obviously, as a liaison for the FOC, I appreciated the hard work that they put into analyzing the proposals. And looking at their proposals, the FOC is recommending that we go out for a bond and an MLO. They did make a little bit of a different recommendation of a $300 million bond, and they did agree with a $40 million MLO. What are the cons of asking for a $300 million bond versus the $250 that, why didn't you choose $300 million? Could you explain that? I know there's some tax language implications as well as ability to spend, but I'll let you.
Again, what's really at the heart of my belief, again, is asking for only what we need. I mean, I know we need more than $250 million. We need $400 million, as one of the speakers said. If we had $1 billion, that still would not get the job done. It still wouldn't get the job done. But I'm a realist. I want to make sure, again, that we only ask for what we need right now. We want to make sure that we give our public a return on their investment. We feel that $250 million will take care of our critical needs. It will also demonstrate to the public that we're not wasting money. It'll demonstrate to the public that we are good stewards of your dollars and that we're going to give you an immediate return on your investment. Also, I keep going back to this again. I'm uncomfortable when I'm asking people for 7 and 8 meals at one time, because this is going to be over the course of educating our children, which is a lifetime. This is going to be an ask down the road. Now, we can put off like we've done for 12 years now, and we're paying the price. But I think $250 million certainly is a reasonable request at this time. Number-wise, I think it's $17.33 versus $22, I believe. Slightly more.
So Director Lemieux, if I could just add one thing to that. One of the questions that you had was about the implications of how fast we have to spend it. So we have to have a reasonable belief that we will spend 85% of the proceeds within 3 years of when we sell it. So even at a $250 million bond, we can't sell all $250 million at once because we're not out building a ton of new schools. We're reinvesting in our existing schools. So even at $250 million, we are going to sell the majority immediately in this late winter, early spring, and then probably 2 years down the road have to sell the rest so that we can meet that 85% threshold. We have the financing team here with me, and one of the things, the first consideration is always we're going to minimize the impact to the taxpayer as much as we possibly can. The other thing we want to do is structure our debt in a way that would allow us in the future to come back with the possibility of a no tax increase bond. And so we have worked with our financing team to build a debt structure that would allow us to do that. Starting probably in around 2024 would probably be our first option. The bigger we go, the bigger the risk that we're not going to have spent all of our funds by the time one of those step downs is available to hit. And the board will remember we missed one of those step downs a couple years ago, and that has made some of this exercise a little bit more complicated to figure out how to minimize the impact to taxpayers. So we want to make sure we're not only thinking about what we're doing right now, how fast we can spend it, but as Dr. Tucker said, we are going to need additional bond funding in the future, and we want to make sure we set ourselves up to minimize the impact of the taxpayer over the long run, and the size of the bond is a key component in that.
Any other questions, Director Lemieux? Yes, please.
So thank you for that. And I also know a challenge is we have summertime to build. We don't have the 12 months to do that, and so that becomes a challenge, trying to get all of those needs met beyond 250, so I appreciate that. If that 250 goes on there, what is the language on the ballot compared to if we did 350? So is there going to be an actual tax increase at 250, or does that only hit at that $300 million bond? And so that changes the actual language.
So the language that's probably going to be most affected is the maximum annual repayment cost is going to be a few $1,000,000 higher. We have to use the highest maximum annual repayment cost in the language, as well as the total repayment cost. If you look at the language that's in front of you, you will see that we are able to stay under some big numbers in the total repayment cost at 250, and that does grow pretty quickly as you go to the 300, because again, we are issuing in two instances. We're not going to issue, whether we do 250 or 300, the amount we issue in January or February is going to be the same. The amount that we issue 2 or 3 years down the road is what would grow. And in a rising interest rate environment, that's going to be more expensive. So our total repayment cost grows a lot more when you go to the bigger amount because of the timing of when we would have to sell those bonds.
If I could ask a follow-up question, Mr. Smith. So when we say that there would be no taxes with the $250 million, it's my understanding that we have some indebtedness that's expiring. And I think, Dr. Tucker, you kind of alluded to this, that if we didn't place that on, there would be a refund to taxpayers because there's an expiration of indebtedness. Is that right?
We would essentially be dropping the tax rate next year. So this would fill in what the drop would be. So we can keep the tax bill flat for taxpayers in lieu of a drop because of our debt that is starting to roll off.
We probably need to be careful with our language. It's not that there's not new taxes, because indeed this is a new initiative, but it's because of our financial situation that we're able to do it with a flat tax rate that doesn't have an impact on our taxpayer.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's at the 250. If we did the 300, then we're actually going to ask.
Correct.
Okay.
Again, we can say no new taxes because some of the bond taxes are falling off. Will we get correct? And the refund is only approximately $64.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board regarding the presentation? Director Graziano.
I have a question. It was regarding the bond council coming in and talking to us about the bond involving the charter schools. And I guess the question I have after reviewing that is just wanting to understand, is that are there any concerns there of inviting the charter schools into that, or is it just more of an administration thing that we wanted to point out and make the community aware of?
So there are no concerns from my point of view. I think, Director Graziano, you point out there's some administrative things that we'd have to figure out how to do. When our bond council was here presenting last time around, ownership of assets and signing agreements with the district and managing that from an administrative point of view would probably be the biggest challenge we would have. It's definitely something we can do, but there's no concern from a financial perspective or from a protection of assets for the district from my point of view.
And if I could just follow up with that, we've heard some concern from our charter community that says, well, your bond question doesn't have the word charter in it. And it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Smith or Dr. Tucker, is that our bond question says all schools. And all schools mean all schools. It doesn't just mean neighborhood, doesn't mean just magnet. It's all schools, neighborhood, magnet, alternative, charter. Is that correct?
That's correct. The language that's in front of you for the bond question that would go on the ballot references schools, not a particular type of school. So it is inclusive of all of our schools.
Very good.
And also I want to add, at the direction of the board, staff members went to each of our 19 charter schools to ascertain what their bond needs would be. And Rich, Mr. Cosgrove, you want to talk a little bit about that? And it's also how we're able to come up with the $3 to $9 million figure.
Thank you for the question. Directors, as Dr. Tucker mentioned, staff and our security staff as well visited every single charter school. We use the same rubrics we use for our schools. Any school of a certain age that warrants repair by replacement, that is 2006 and older, All of the Tier 1 needs were identified. We reviewed the specific details. We confirmed the preliminary costs. Those were included in the presentation, as well as every single charter school included our security needs, and we even have costs there to standardize their security to our standards.
Mr. Cosgrove, did you find, I know in the past we've had, charters have kind of self-identified what they believe are Tier 1 needs. How did you find that the work that you did in terms of matching that to our assessment, if you will? Was it pretty accurate that their Tier 1 needs would also classify as our Tier 1 needs, how we evaluate those?
Well, this exercise, along with our annual Master Capital Plan update, we receive their needs, and we do make some minor corrections to make sure it's aligned to our tier and priority processes.
Very good. Director Lemieux?
To that, and to pay attention to what we've heard from our constituents, letters to the editor, etc. There is a concern that the point of having charter option in our district, one of those was that the taxpayer would not take the burden of capital needs, that's one thing that they do separately. And one thing our bond counsel said was that we have to be careful that we make sure that whatever we do give them in bond money is something that we could get back if it failed. And so I'm hearing that the security upgrades, what were the security upgrade needs in that $3 to $9 million range?
In general, we prefer not to share specific details.
Sure.
But it includes physical security, as well as ways to report and observe the campus and student population.
And the types of cameras.
And the particular types of cameras. So the hardware, the software would be upgraded, and the physical security measures within the building would align with ours.
And so to help the community understand that when we're considering this, we're considering the safety needs of all of our children, no matter what kind of school they choose to go to. So
Absolutely.
That is not an unreasonable ask to help with that.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're absolutely correct. And if my estimates are correct, and folks, please correct me if I'm incorrect, I believe 90%, roughly 90% of students who attend a K-8 charter school come back to one of our high schools. Is that correct, about average? Ted, is that about it? Yeah. And so we need to make sure our high schools are safe for all of our students and secure.
And just for audience that maybe didn't understand the comment that Mr. Cosgrove made about preferring not to share details, just to emphasize the fact that we don't believe that we should be sharing those kind of details if we're to use those as protective measures for our children. So that's what he's referring to. I see Mr. Payne back there as well. He came in right at the time you said that, Rich, just to make sure that you weren't sharing any of our secrets about security. So, but just so you know that some of those details we really do not make public just because it would compromise the protection of our children. I have one quick question on slide 4, if I may. When we were talking about compensation, Amanda and Mary, one of the things that this board has been concerned about is just how do we recover from the flawed compensation system of pay bands and market pay. And so I'm curious that is that assumed in there when you talk about looking at the midpoint range? Are we also looking at those teachers, especially those teachers that we put into the lowest band, which again, I believe is absolutely flawed and very unfortunate, but are we looking out for those teachers as well to say, we recognize that we need to look at your compensation because we placed you in a flawed system to begin with?
And as they make their way up, Amanda and Mary are part of our Human Resources Department.
Whereas the licensed group, through this, we would be able to begin to address those internal issues. Please know that it's not going to address the external issues at this point, Director Ray, but internally it would begin to do that, and Mary can share an example of what that might look like.
I can. So if we look at, for example, a teacher in the hard-to-hire range who was hired in 12-13, so after the pay freeze years at the beginning of market-based pay, They are currently earning $45,500, and I think you'll all agree that that's not a lot of money. In our approach, we look at that teacher's salary in relation to the midpoint of the band. That's called a comp ratio in comp speak. That teacher would currently be at a 0.71 comp ratio, meaning they're 29% below the midpoint for the range. We would propose that that teacher get an increase of 6% in our proposal, bringing them an extra amount of $2,730. Not a fortune, but it is a start, as Amanda said, toward addressing those internal pay gaps. To quote for the third time tonight, if we had $1 billion, we could spend all of it and not complete all of the needs that we have. But it is a really good start.
And just to clarify, we've gotten rid of several of the bands. I mean, certainly when we were putting primary teachers in a very low band and sixth grade teachers in another band, that nonsense is gone. Is that correct?
We have. We condensed from 6 bands to 3, and to your point, all elementary teachers are in the same band at this time.
Good. So that work's already been done, but then the future work really is to analyze each of our individual employees to determine how do we get them into a fair compensation range, if at all possible.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions for our staff regarding their presentation? Other questions about the bond and MLO that would be helpful? I see Director Holtzman and then Director Lemieux.
So I just have a question. If an MLO bond were to pass, what methods would we use to ensure transparency to our community and accountability at all our schools?
Well, I think the first thing we would point our folks to the website in which we'll have an accounting of all of our expenses. And also, at the recommendation of the board, that we would set up a committee, sort of an oversight committee regarding our spending as well as our cost savings. I know we have not spent much time talking about efficiencies and economies of scales. That will be part of our narrative as well. Scott, anything that you want to add?
I would like to ask for 100 million MLO to make us competitive with Cherry Creek. So I think going to 75 million, 60, I don't think 50 million is a crazy ask. I appreciate the recommendation of 40 million. But I'm having a really hard time with that one. That is like my thing is that. So can you explain to me or talk me into 40 million versus 50 million and why that is? Because I'm looking at people who've been doing this and taking care of our kids. And I so appreciate our teachers, but we've got to quit saying teachers, we got to say employees. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. And so why aren't we asking for the 50?
Well, first, I don't want you upset with me with recommending the 40 million versus the 50 million. And I think for the reasons I just articulated, and I still stand by that. And if we show our community, we show our parents, we show our students, we show our business folks that they're going to get a great return on their investment, that we're actually in the children's business, folks are going to support us. They're going to support us. And again, when I go home, I sleep well. And I can't sleep well if I'm asking for more money than I think we need. And I'm not saying we don't need the 50 million or the 100 million. We do. But I want to be fair with our community. I want to be fair with our staff. And my heart aches for everyone to hear the pay cuts, to hear the pay bans. I get it. I understand it. But this is a new day. This is a new time for us right now. This is an opportunity for us to prove ourselves. And as someone said earlier, there isn't anywhere else to cut either. There isn't anywhere else to cut. And we need to be successful. We need to be successful tonight. Yes.
So, if I can wrap my brain around this, we get the 40 million. There's a challenge
with when we did the polling, because the polling was mentioned tonight that it was all very high. When we did the polling, 73 was not on the ballot. And there's a concern for what that might bring out as far as pushback against any tax increase. And to me, it would be devastating to lose this. I mean, it would literally be devastating to lose this. And if 40 million is going to get us closer to, but 50 million might be too much for our taxpayers to tolerate, that's what you're asking me to do, is make sure that I ask for something that our taxpayers can tolerate.
Absolutely. Can
Okay.
better tolerate.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Tucker and staff? All right, very good. Dr. Tucker, staff, thank you so much. Well done, and thank you for giving us answers to a lot of our questions. So really our next step, board, is really then to have that conversation. I think Director Lemieux set the stage for us in terms of amount, in terms of wrestling with this whole notion of a 40 versus 50, as well as a 250 bond versus 300. And so I would like to hear specifically to that so that we can hone in on what makes sense. What are some thoughts about that as you wrestle with that notion? Director Lung and then Director Graziano.
I truly appreciate Dr. Tucker's and the staff's recommendations to take the middle road and just ask enough. In 2008, we asked a $70 million mill levy. We failed. 2011, we only asked $29 million. It failed. If you look at the even years elections, the mill levy override asking by different school district in the even years, okay, is different from the odd years. Because even years, the turnout is so much higher. And in Douglas County, I expect that it's going to turn out 75% more voters going to vote. Except DPS, no one has passed anything that's over $25 million MLO, except DPS. Those are facts. So I appreciate, the cautious nature of the administrations, especially in a conservative, county that we have. It's about trust, and I truly believe that this school board has earned a certain degree of trust after we start, after we sworn in, and hiring Dr. Tucker is a huge, huge trust building for our community. But I think if people see us pass a moderate level of mill levy and bond, and then we do what we said that we're going to do, that will increase their trust for this board and for these administrations to further our, if we have later, then if we have more lead, that will increase the confidence that to trust us to pass another one. We all agree that this is not going to be a one-time deal, and this is not a one-time deal. This is not a one-time deal, okay? As our CFO said that in a few years, we need another bond. That's almost a guarantee, okay? So, again, based on the fact that I see in the past, mill levy and bond initiative from the other school district, and based on the track record the Dallas County School District put in for the past 4 or 5 times, I think this is a good compromise. We certainly need all the money that we have to pay catch up because we're $18,000 to $12,000 less than the school district in paying our teacher. And our teacher worth every single penny. And my daughter testified a while ago, there's a lot of teachers have to leave because you just cannot love a job and take a $12,000 to $18,000 less pay years after years. An employee is our most important asset for our school district. So we definitely to pass something this year. And again, I support the administration's suggestions because I think it's a reasonable and fair compromise. And I truly believe that if the public and community see that we use the money responsible, and if later then we have the lead, they will trust us again. But this is the first important step, and we have to get this passed if we choose to put a mill levy and bond initiative this year.
Thank you, Director Long. Director Graziano.
I guess I'm not going to try and state or restate all the wonderful things that people have said since I started campaigning to do this a year ago. This has been something that we've heard over and over. We've heard impassioned conversations for the last year about why we need to do that, why we need to go out and pursue a bond and mill levy. So the other thing, with that, one of the things, we have a little cheat sheet up here that we kind of try to follow, and it says one of the things we will avoid is about overanalyzing. And I think so many people have done amazing work to get us to this point, and it's with that, I'm 100% behind what Dr. Tucker is saying and what the cabinet has proposed. And with that, I'm ready to let's get this done and start campaigning. So you have my full support on with what you've proposed so far. So
thank you, Director Graziano. Other comments, Director Holtzman and Director Chancho-Shore.
So thanks for letting me read some comments because this is really important to me, and I want to make sure that I don't leave some things out. But I did add some things while I sat here tonight, and one of them is that I have had a range of emotions as we've gone through these last few months, even more than that, and especially these last few weeks, and especially tonight, as we have heard just impassioned people talking to us about the needs of this district, and we know that they're real and they're very clear, so I'm not going to restate those, but so I've had the range of emotions. It's sad to see some of the challenges that our students have. It's sad to see the fall, quite frankly, that we've had. But I am so encouraged, and I have the opposite range of emotion with all of you here tonight. You all are inspirational. I have every confidence that this community understands our needs and is willing to support this. And with that, I would say that because the needs are clear, because the voices of our community have overwhelmingly asked us to give you the opportunity to do this for our students, because Dr. Tucker's recommendation is an expert recommendation. He's considered the situation cautiously. He has spent incredible hours talking to our community and giving his expert opinion about what is best. And we don't have the luxury of not passing this. We have to pass this. So I also fully support his recommendation. I understand the $250 million bond request and the $40 million MLO, and I also understand that we would love to have a lot more. But I fully support that. I think that is reasonable, thoughtful, and I also support that we'll be looking at it again in the future. This district wants to continue to improve, and I know that's what you all want to. I see that these funds would be used for critical mental health, safety, academic programming needs. It would allow us to come closer to adequately valuing our students' most important school resources, which is our educators, our staff. So for me, the question is not whether we can afford to support our students. The question is whether we can afford not to. And this community cannot afford not to. So I just expressed my full support for putting a bond MLO in the amounts recommended by Dr. Tucker and our staff.
Thank you. Director Holtzman, Director Chancho-Shore.
I'm not going to restate everything people stated because I'm cut out a half of my page here and I'm only going to do a couple sentences because I don't want to continue to say the same things that we heard for 2.5 hours. All of those things. We live in a highly educated community. It was obvious from public comment, from conversations, from dialogues with teachers and principals in the last year, that people want to trust our school board and want to trust our school system. And it's our moral obligation to do what we can do as Board of Education members to assure that we're supporting our students in our community. It's also our moral obligation as a Board of Education who hired a superintendent to do his job. And his job was to look at what he recommends and his staff recommends as the best needs to suit our community. So I fully support the Dr. Tucker and staff's recommendation based on the fact that we've spent a year looking at what our needs are and a year addressing what those are. And he's our superintendent. I want to continue to build a unity of purpose and an obvious trust in what our focus is. So I fully support the recommendation.
Dr. Lemieux? I'm going to make a motion according to the language. I have kind of a specific language to make it, so if you don't mind, just because it's illegal. All right. Director Lemieux and I are arm wrestling. Who gets to make the motion?
I wanted to make the motion.
I will note that she wants to make the motion. The motion I'm going to make, though, has specific language in it so that we're covered with regards to the legal parameters of what we're asking. So I'm going to make a motion on behalf of Director Lemieux. If she were to do this, she would say the same thing. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the resolution that references placing a bond question on the ballot in which the total aggregate principal amount of the indebtedness to be incurred shall not exceed $250 million.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Is there further discussion? Director Lung?
And again, I know that there's a lot of rumor out there, but it's important to emphasize that truth is truth, okay? And
is that right? We've heard that somewhere.
Yes. And we do share the money to our charter community, even with the bond on the security area. And I know that you have not made the motions for the MRO yet, but charter will get 100%, okay? So I hope we can put this rumor to the rest, because we are seeking the truth and we want to tell people the truth. And there's no second truth, there's only one truth.
So our CFO was looking nervous at my motion, so I just want to see what, did I say something incorrectly?
Well, we want to make sure we're telling the truth. I should have said the resolution would say 249,975.
Well, actually, I'm going to pull this, it talks about principal, and so we actually are, part of our resolution does say it will not exceed the sum of $249,975,000. I threw an extra $5,000 in there just for fun. But if you would like it to be more specific, we will say, I'm more than glad to friendly amend to say $249,975,000 is the aggregate principal that we shall not exceed. All right.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Thank you, Director Lemieux. And I guess, just one comment I would make. I think we get consumed with the dollars, quite honestly. And I think what I heard tonight, and I'm so grateful that I did hear it tonight, is that this community values education. It's not about, should it be $250 million? Is it a $300 million? It's about valuing education. And I can't emphasize that point enough, because I think when we see the debate that's out there, we get into debate about the dollars. And to me, that's needless. For us, the debate ought to be, does this community support education like our other communities do? And certainly, I will tell you that we have not had one email or one public commenter that has said anything negative about this. They have all said, put this on the ballot, we're ready to go. And so I just want to applaud all of you for that higher standard, which says this is about kids. It's not about my taxes, not about my property tax. It's about valuing what we do for kids. And I also just want to also applaud the fact that we heard from a diverse group of people. We heard from parents, non-parents, grandparents, electricians, bus drivers, teachers, and I could just go on and on and on. So it's not like we have one group that's coming to us and saying, do this. We have multiple groups that are asking us to do this as well. So, so it's just obvious to me. One other thing I just have to say is that I know that there's some buzzing out there that says, gosh, Douglas County, you've got over a 90% graduation rate and your test scores are great. Why on earth do you need more money thrown at you when that kind of result is happening? And here's what I would say to that is that graduation rates and test scores are not the end-all indicator for us. We heard our kids say, you know, how difficult it was when their teacher left and they no longer had that mental health support to come back to that teacher. You know, there's far many more indicators, like the recommendation to do career tech and education. We can do so much with enriching the experience. It's not always about can we get 100% to graduate. It's about have we given them the experience to be able to choose a path that they're going to be successful in. And I just want to share that because I've seen some of that buzzing out there, and it kind of frustrates me. It says, well, we're okay because we have 90% graduate. Well, you know what? We can do better, and we can do some incredible things with the support that all of you have conveyed, as well as, if this indeed does pass, the financial resources that we can plug into really making this district an incredible place for all our kids. So with that, unless there's further discussion, I will take a vote. Ready? All right. Well, and Zoe, do you have any? You've been there very quietly, and any thoughts that you want to say? Forgive me for not calling on you earlier.
I see the impact that lack of funding has on our schools, and I see the impact that it has on our teachers having to work like second and third jobs just to be able to support their family. And I feel like this, being able to support people that work in the school district even more, would help everyone in the community.
Very good. Well said. And she's the reason why we're doing it, right? All right. So we're voting on this bond question. I'm sorry, Director Lung?
So do we vote two times, one for the bond, one for the bill?
That's correct. So we'll do another vote for the MLO. So this is for the bond question, not to exceed $249,975,000. All right. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
I, and not to speak for my colleague who is dearly missed tonight, but I have a feeling Director Vogel would also support this.
Would have to agree with you. Director Lung.
Aye.
And Director Holtzman. Sorry, I went out of order.
I think I actually already said aye, but I'll say it again.
Okay, well, aye. All right, she threw me off with the Vogel comment. And the Director Ray is aye as well. That motion passes unanimously. So. All right, so our next motion is specifically for a mill levy override, and I am making a motion that we accept the resolution in which we are stating that additional property tax revenues generated by a tax increase of $50 million plus tax revenues generated pursuant to the prior authorization does not exceed 25% of the district's total program at the time. Oh, did I get 50 in there? You know, gotta watch us. Gotta watch us.
Yeah, you have to watch you. Maybe I should be the one making the motions.
Really?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Dr. Tucker is giving us flashcards, so I almost did it, Director Lemieux. Almost. We're this close. All right. All right, so we will change that motion to a mill levy override that does not exceed $40 million plus any tax revenues generated pursuant to prior authorization does not exceed 25% of the district's total program. That is the motion.
Second.
Motion's been second. Any further discussion regarding mill levy override at the $40 million mark? Seeing none, Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
And again,
because I have had the honor to work with Wendy Vogel. I just cannot not say her name when we are doing this, and I am so proud to be able to say aye.
And Lung?
Aye.
Ray, aye. And again, mill levy override passes unanimously. And with that, I think the board has earned a break, so we will take a 5-minute break. And thank you, audience. Thank you, everyone, for being here. vacancies. So with that, I will take a motion.
I move we adopt the consent agenda as stated in the agenda.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded by Graziano. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. All right. Consent agenda passes. Next motion that we're looking for is the adoption of the unofficial minutes.
I make a motion that we adopt the unofficial minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Lemieux. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye. All right. Dr. Tucker, superintendent report, anything that you want to report on out at this time?
Yes, I'll be very brief here. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Second thing, we are collaborating very closely with higher education institutions, 2-year and 4-year institutions, to continue and expand our concurrent enrollment services here for students. That's dual enrollment, where students are gaining high school and college credit concurrently, and that's at no expense to parents. One of our visions is to ensure that every student here in Douglas County has the opportunity to earn an associate's degree free of charge before they graduate from high school. So we're building those agreements. We've signed a couple of agreements this week, particularly with Arapahoe Community College. Secondly, the board has directed us to look at high school late start times, and so January, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape to present to the board on our findings. We're being very methodical. We're doing research. We're learning from best practices, and we're also looking at some of the pitfalls, like the impact on schedules and busing. We heard quite a bit about busing, so we're being methodical, but we'll be ready come January with a full report about high school late start times. I know we don't talk a whole lot about this. The achievement results are coming back, and Mr. Reynolds will be presenting a report to the board and to the community. Folks, I know I don't have to say this to you. Our students are as bright as any students in America. And so we're not going to value everything we do or put everything into test taking. But when our students do sit for assessments, they have great teachers, they're coming from great homes, and they can compete with any students in America. You saw 3 of our outstanding graduates tonight. Fourth, I want to thank the hundreds of people who have come out for our coffee chats and our engagements to talk about the great things that are happening in the Douglas County School District, as well as our challenges and opportunities. And also I want to thank the Communications Department, particularly Stacy and Nate, for all of your assistance in those coffee chats. And fifth, I know Dennis Houston just left. I want to thank him for coming out to talk about our budding partnership with career technical education with the town of Parker.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. Okay, next on our agenda is to look at a policy, second reading of the parent engagement policy. Director Lung, I believe this was your policy that you were working on, and so I'm going to let you introduce it, and then we'll look at questions and discussion and a vote.
Well, I appreciate the board in February 4th passed motions to assign me to take a lead on this. Truly, this policy is, we have the synergy when we do develop this policy. And as Patty Anderson said a while ago during the public comment, we have one of the most productive DAC subcommittee meeting in the last 5 years when we work on this policy. And for that, I want to thank the subcommittee chair, Chester. He did a wonderful job of chairing this. And Christian Field, she did a wonderful job of putting the things together. And we also truly integrated committee member like Patty and Camilla. And of course, as a board liaisons at that time, I was sitting in there. This is truly a committee effort, and also the staff also did wonderful contributions. Stacy was there with us for several hours and working with Wendy, who's trying to get the legal language done. And prior to that, Steve Corella, he get a first draft and lay the foundations. So it's a true effort between the DAC, the community, the staff, and as a board liaisons. At that time, I was so proud of the accomplishment of everybody. And you see there's two attachments. One is the original first reading. And for that to transform into what you see in the attachment, which the DAC was passed last week. I think the DAC liaisons can speak more to that. My fellow director, Chancellor Shaw. And I think it's a wonderful collaboration, and everybody's on board, with that. Right? Can I correct you last week?
It was we were just finishing all the work that you all have been doing for the past many opportunities, and it was a very collaborative effort. That was obvious to me, and thanks all of you for the work that you did on this. There was a little tiny bit more wordsmithing that occurred and lots of wonderful discussions, and it led to this completed project, so appreciate that.
And again, by no means this is the final policy that we cannot change and set into stone. By statutes, we're going to review this every year anyway. Hopefully, we don't need to do major changes. But this is a great first step. Dallas County School District finally has parent and family engagement policy that is written by the community and the staff in collaborative together, and that is a huge accomplishment by itself, because we're not dictating from either side how this thing's supposed to work. So for that, I humbly request the board to accept the recommendations that was passed by the DAC last week.
So before we move forward with that, Chester, Christian, Kamala, and he got the button and everything. I know. He threw me off because he said, yeah, anyway, Kamala. Chester, especially, I know this has been your baby for a long time, and you persevered through a lot of iterations of this. So I just want to give you a chance to make any statements you'd like and that you want to capture that build upon what Director Long has shared.
There you go. Excuse me. Just want to echo the thanks to everyone that worked on this, DAC, everyone else, staff. We did a great job back in July when we all got together to mesh two reports to get to one policy to present to the DAC to present to you guys. So we did a great job. Being a parent, I'm very excited about this policy. I think it speaks volumes on us working together, collaborating with the district, with everyone in the district to do what's best for the kids. As we have heard so much tonight, we're doing this for the kids. We're in this for the kids. And I think this policy speaks volumes to making sure that we do that.
Very good.
And now to Ray,
yes,
if I could ask Stacy to also come up and address this, because she has spent a lot of time working with us. And ultimately, she is the district's liaisons with CDE on the parent engagement and things like that. I want to hear her thoughts, on this also from the staff side. Hey, and thank you, Chester. You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
I think we have a
parent engagement policy draft here that really, it truly is about the kids, that brings together that unity of purpose. Everybody's on the same page. It's very positive. I was really excited when I saw this come together. So I do think this is absolutely the right direction, and I think it provides me and my team with the direction we need to move forward in providing resources for our SACs and our parents. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Ms. Rader. Is any questions for our parents, our directors? Any questions regarding this policy? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a motion.
Go ahead.
Well, so I want to make a motion to adopt the parents and family engagement policy approved by DAC August 14, 2018 as attached.
Right. I'll second that. And I was trying to beat you to the motion because I did want to thank you especially for your dedication to making this such a great process for everyone, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Again, you know, we can look at that every year is by no means set in the stone, and but I truly think that this is a great model that we work in true collaborations. As Stacy said, that it started a little bit rocky, but at the end, everybody come to understanding, and we have a great policy.
Very good. All right, the motion's been made by Director Lung, seconded by Director Holtzman. Further discussion? Director Lemieux.
So it actually came up in our work session tonight, parent and guardian. Not every child has a parent, but they do have guardians. So is there any concern that we are not recognizing guardians? And I kind of throw that to the committee on why they chose not to have that word in there, or was that just not a consideration?
Well, this is the state law. State law only say parents and family. It
says guardians right there. Nope, my bad. Woo! I retract.
All right. So Director Lung, you don't need to.
So you just look at the title, including Okay.
All right. Very good. So. So we have indeed still have a motion on the table and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano. Aye. Holtzman. Aye. Lemieux.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Ray. Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Again, DAC, well done. Good job. Subcommittee, also. All right. Moving on to board reports. I want to first of all just give you an update. I had the pleasure of testifying before the Colorado Board of Education for our appeal. Director Holtzman was with me as well regarding our denial of a charter school. And I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time celebrating that, but I do want to just point out how awesome it was to hear our State Board of Education give our district accolades. The decision was to uphold our decision, which our attorney who represented us said they had never seen that happen, that it usually gets remanded back to the district for further consideration. And so I think what I discerned from that is we've got a pretty darn good process in place when we sit down and look at new charter applications. I think it also is indicative of the fact that our existing charter schools are top-notch, and we hold them to a very high expectation. But I'll just share with you some of the comments I heard. One of the members on that State Board of Education who I won't tell you the person's name, but was but very just kind of a very abrasive kind of an individual. But what I will tell you, when he voted yes, he said, I quote, "Douglas County does not discriminate against charter schools." And this was a statement of a man who is not happy with us for rescinding vouchers, but he recognized that when it came to our charter schools, that we're fair, that we're equitable, that we are thorough in our process. And so I thought that was an incredible accolade. We had many that talked about that they still see Douglas County as the beacon district in terms of what everybody looks towards, in terms of wanting to aspire. So again, I just want to just congratulate, and I know Danny Windsor's not here, our new director of personalized, or director of choice programming. Sorry, Nancy, almost replaced you. But I just think it's worth us acknowledging that sometimes we get so critical of our processes that we don't give ourselves the benefit of the doubt to say we have a good structure in place. Doesn't mean it's perfect, no. Can we tweak it? Absolutely. But when you hear a state board of education affirm our processes, and they rarely uphold district decisions and they upheld ours, I think says a great deal. So I just wanted to celebrate that with you. The other thing I wanted to announce to you is that this board has been nominated to be considered for CASB's All-State Board of Education Award. And yeah. And so I will be submitting an application soon because of that. Why do you find that funny?
I'm happy.
Oh, you're just happy. You're just delirious. This is an award that actually CASB recognizes on an annual basis, and so we'll be in consideration for that at that award, and it will be selected in December. But the reason I share that with you is that in order for me to submit the application, I need all of your support. So I will be sending that application out to you for your review before it gets submitted. I need to submit it by September. Dr. Tucker already made the statement of I give it my 199% support, and so we need his support as well, but just wanted to announce that. So those are the things that I have on my agenda. Other board reports. I know Director Vogel's not here, so we'll go to other board reports.
So I just want to celebrate, I think it was a new way to a new kind of way to do their agenda for DAC. And if it wasn't new, I still thought it was highly effective. So they had tables, Melody et al. Had tables set up so that feeder groups could talk with the DAC reps, so SAC reps could talk to DAC reps and give feedback. And the purpose was really to build communication and collaboration with SACs and to have all voices heard, I think, from my perspective. It was pretty, there was a lot of conversation. There weren't as many SACs as we hope to have in the future, but there was representation. I felt like that reach out and that handout to let's do all this together just exemplified what we're all in the unity of purpose piece that we're looking for. So I wanted to celebrate that and congratulate our DAC for working toward that collaboration.
Very good. All right. Congrats, Mrs. Fields. We saw the diagram and everything. She laid it out for where the tables were going to go. So, okay, all right. Oh, yeah, a change up. Uh-oh. All right. Other board reports. Director Lemieux.
Thank you. So the foundation is another one of those incredible entities that we have in Douglas County. They are working so hard to get a phenomenal system. At the helm is Megan Silverthorne, and she is doing incredible work and reaching out to help us with those partnerships that we so desperately need and value. And so I'm very thankful to the foundation and all the work that they, as volunteers, are doing to try and represent Douglas County and make sure that we're getting some of that financial help that we need and will continue to need once we pass this bond MLO. And I can now say that. We're passing it. And then the other thing I'd like to do is I would like to thank the FOC. They do not have an August meeting, and because we were considering this, they very generously used their time as individuals and submitted their feedback to their chair, Vince Perillo, and he did a great job submitting the memo that you saw included in our agenda tonight to help us with that very big decision making. And so I just wanted to thank openly and for the record our FOC. They did a great job of giving us feedback that we value, and we look forward to that collaborative feedback as we move forward with some other things that we're going to be needing their expertise on. So thank you to those volunteers for taking time out of their summer to do something that was not expected, but they did a phenomenal job doing it. So thanks if you're watching.
Very good. I'm going to insert something I forgot to mention. Director Lemieux reminded me of that, is that I want to give all board members copies of our fair campaign practices, do's and don'ts. But I also want to just make one comment, is that certainly I think we tend to think we're more restricted than we are. And so I also want you to know that certainly one of the do's for fair campaign is that we can actually pass a resolution supporting what we did tonight. And I know it sounds kind of like it's repetitious because everybody assumes that we would support it by our unanimous vote, but I think it might behoove us later on as we get closer to the ballot to actually pass a resolution that says we unanimously support the passage of the MLO and the bond. So, Director Lung.
I certainly echo that, because when I was talking to my constituents and also teachers and principal, there's still a lot of misinformations out there, what they can say or what they cannot say, when they can say it and when they cannot say it. So I would love to have Dr. Tucker, and if you could inform, I mean, just suggestions, okay? I'm not directing Dr. to do anything, but I'm just making, just want you to be aware of that. Is there's still a lot of people that's very, very confused on. Obviously, nobody want to violating the law, but overly cautious about that also does not do us any good, because they have their First Amendment right, and we certainly want to respect everybody's First Amendment right to freedom of speech. Whatever they want to do in their own time and not using the public dollars is their business. So I want to. I know that there's a September meeting of you gathering with all the principal together, or you can just send out an email and let people know for sure. I don't want anybody in trouble, but at the same time, I want to respect everybody's First Amendment right.
Dr. Tucker.
Director Long, we greatly appreciate that, and I believe Stacy has a document queued up and ready to hit send when this board meeting ends or gets ready to go in executive session. Thank you.
The other due, Dr. Tucker, that I would, and Stacy as well, that I was pleased to see is that we certainly are allowed to present factual information as long as our information of facts is on both sides of the issue. And so I'd really encourage us. I know we started out with a flyer that was really well done to initially identify our financial needs, but I also think it would be great to have a similar flyer that really says factually this is what the bond and MLO will provide, and then the other maybe the other concerns as far as what others are saying. But as long as we're balanced and presenting all factual information, we're certainly in compliance with the fair campaign practice. So again, like Director Lung is alluding, I just think we have to make sure we're getting communication out there as much as possible and not just rely solely on our campaign group to be doing that. Director Lemieux?
Interestingly enough, I attended Highlands Ranch High School's SAC last night, and that question came up not only with staff but also with the parents: what is and is not allowed on district property. If they want to paint their cars, can their cars be in the parking lot? So answering some of those questions. Obviously, it's the same thing as any campaign. You can't paint your cars during work hours, 30 minutes before or 30 minutes after, but you can certainly, get to school 45 minutes early and paint as many cars as you can in that 15 minutes. So I think maybe some of those specifics about what they'll want to do. And then also, if a parent emails a teacher, can a teacher respond via district email? They can respond, but they can't send out a vote for this bond MLO from their district email. Can a bus driver, teacher, EA, lunch, anybody, any employee of this district use their own time and resources to campaign for or against? There might be some who are against it, but that they absolutely can do that, and I would hope that they would, just as citizens of the United States, just do all that they can to support causes that they support. And so just want to make sure that we're being specific with them, that here's what you can, here's what you can't. Because I've looked over this document, and if there could be like maybe an example of what does that mean, what is that interpretation, in a way that lets them know that, is it okay to answer a parent? Yes, it is, but you have to answer factually, and you have to give both sides. So just want to make sure that we're doing that as well.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the other board members that I'll pass out to you too, you may have already seen this, but there was an article in the Denver Post regarding Cherry Creek starting their schools later, as well as Littleton. And I was pleased to hear Dr. Tucker again acknowledge that they'll be ready in January, as our resolution has stated, to give us a recommendation of their work. But I just thought it was really affirming when you read this article, the research that really supports this whole notion that when kids have more sleep, they're going to be able to be more higher functioning in school. But and I don't know, Dr. Tucker, maybe behoove us, just so that our community is aware, one is to maybe give us an update in terms of what our process will be. For instance, will we have a study group like some districts have had with community members? Will there be a survey that the community can expect and anticipate? But it might be helpful just so we don't wait till January to go, boom, here's a recommendation, that we really have done some footwork that leads up to that. So anyway, sorry, those were two things I forgot to give you guys earlier. Director Holtzman.
So I first wanted to thank our staff that coordinated the welcome back to school visits for us. That was just a great way to start the year. And my only complaint was I didn't get to go to all of the schools, but it was great. And then I will try not to talk too much about the great morning I had at Rocky Mountain School of Expeditionary Learning, which is the BOCES that we participate in. We have 50 students there out of about 392 or so. And there's just a lot of great things going on there. We got to actually welcome their students and parents to school today. And on the more business side of things, our Dr. Tucker and Director of Choice Programming, Danny Windsor, will probably be seeing from me soon some business sorts of things that I need them to look over for RIMSL, which has to do with their, they lease their building from Denver Public Schools and a BEST grant that they're applying for. So that's kind of on the business side.
Okay. There board reports, any other? All right, seeing none. As I shared earlier, board, we do have some issues that we need to discuss in executive session, specifically legal issues, and the need to hold conference with the board's legal counsel to receive legal advice, special legal pursuant to CRS 246402-4B. Specifically, this deals with the American Humanist lawsuit. I will this time take a motion for us to move into executive session. Will also be adjournment, and then you'll get a chance, Mr. Director Lang, we can do a motion second, then we'll get some discussion from you, okay? Is there a motion to move us into executive session?
So moved.
I second it.
Okay, moved by Lemieux, seconded by Holtzman. Director Lang, comments?
Well, it's too late because I want to ask Dr. Tucker one more questions related to the camping stuff, but you already moved to another items.
Well, we're not adjourned yet, so you're welcome to go ahead and proceed.
Dr. Tucker, I just want to ask you, just going back to the Fair Camping Act and things like that, can we make sure that we get a legal departments to draft up something at a certain, because I want the staff to know about this as soon as possible. Can we complete a timeline from the legal departments and from you to see when are you going to send out something so that everybody's on the same page?
We're on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll ask Stacy, would you come up and give us a very quick synopsis on what activities we've completed so far to prepare for tonight and going forward through November?
Sure, absolutely. So we do have a press release that actually just went out to talking about the vote tonight and what that means. We're going to be getting some more updates on our funding page. I thank you for your patience. We launched a new website on Friday, so my goal is to really focus on that funding page tomorrow. We do have an entire document around do's and don'ts when talking about the bond and MLO. I've run that by Wendy Jacobs and I'm also getting an opinion from Kaplan and Ernest and just waiting to hear back from them on that.
Quick question. We have to pay Kaplan and Ernest. Why can't we use CASB to look over it?
That's a good question.
I would prefer
yeah.
to use CASB
Okay.
rather than paying outside legal counsel.
Sure,
So
we can do that.
Do we need a consensus to?
No, we'll just make sure.
Sure.
Not done.
Yeah, it's important that legal looks over it, but we have access to them taking a look at that document for free, and we pay dues to them, so I'd like to take advantage of that rather than paying outside legal counsel. Thank you.
The only difference is that CASB's legal counsel doesn't represent us, so they can make certainly recommendations and advice, but it's not legally binding recommendations because they're not actually.
But Ms. Jacobs does, so we'll
Correct.
have representation for us and then outside legal counsel.
Right. So yeah. So what I hear Stacy saying is just that we want to make sure that somebody's legal eyes are on it enough for us to feel confident that it's not going to get us into problems.
Well, we were talking today in cabinet about that, and it's certainly not that I don't trust Ms. Jacobs or CASB. It's just one of those things where we've got such great momentum. I want to make sure and double check that we've got this right because I don't want us getting hit on a technicality. So that's why I'm being extra cautious.
And just an FYI, I don't know if this matters to the board, but whenever district personnel initiates that conversation with Kaplan and Ernest, it comes out of their budget. It doesn't come out of the board budget. I realize it's district monies, and so we want to be good stewards, but I also want you to know that there's a difference in terms of how Kaplan and Ernest charges for their expenses when it's a district initiated or staff initiated versus a board initiation.
So I trust you. I just don't know if it had been thought of. And so, I'm just throwing that out there we are very diligent in how we're spending our dollars. And so if that is something staff is comfortable doing in lieu of paying outside legal counsel, but I will trust you to make that call if you feel like you need Kaplan and Ernst. I just wanted to throw it out there that might be an option just to.
Okay, point well taken.
So may I ask a follow-up questions?
Please.
So once you get the legal opinions of what you can do and what you cannot, because from my past experience, sometimes that's stuck into a certain level, it doesn't all the way propagate down to the entire staff level. So you're going to tell the principal to have an all-staff meeting and then hand it to them and make sure that they're all in the same page. The reason why I'm asking, because I was with Dr. Tucker in the Monday meeting, and there's a person who is in there who was so admitted to be also a teacher, and remember that, the conversations?
Yes.
So seems like because of the previous administration's some misinformations that was given to them, so there's a lot of confusions out there. I want to make sure that there's a plan that this will be all the way propagate through every single 8,100 staff that we have, and we have no mistake on what we can do and what we cannot do, because that's my past experience. We just heard about it on Monday that is not the case in the past.
I want to say several weeks ago, maybe been over a month, when Bright Futures for Douglas County Kids began coming together. A legal staff member from Kaplan and Ernest had previously put out a do's and don't document at no charge. She sent it to me, and we sent it to all of our high school administrators and in fact our K-12 administrators, I should say. We did this months ago, and so that's probably the main reason why we followed up with Kaplan and Ernst as this process began to evolve. We have the press release going out today. DLT is scheduled in, a couple weeks. We'll have an opportunity to stand before all of our principals and assistant principals and have the same conversation. And Stacy, what are some of the things we're doing in between that time?
Yeah, so this notification that we're working on, my plan is to get it out tomorrow, and it would go to all staff. To Dr. Tucker's point, the communication we sent out at the beginning of August, I believe, also went to charter schools. So we're making it very clear to all of our school leaders what they can and can't do. But I do know that once this is now voted on, which it was tonight, the first thing our school leaders are going to do is, well, what does that change now? So I want to make sure they have very clear guidance that now that this has been voted to put on the ballot, this is what you can and can't do, so they know what's changed and what hasn't. So it's a very detailed document, and I just want to make sure that's.
And we have information in terms of what students can and cannot do as well.
Exactly.
Many times that's an element that unfortunately is overlooked, but our do's and don'ts pertain to staff and students.
And then to your point about the one-pager, we're also putting together a one-pager that is just about complete. I've had Cabinet looking at it today that explains what this bond and mill levy would fund, what it would cost the average homeowner. We're even pulling up some fun facts about, $17 a month. That's less than a gym membership. $4.25 a week. That's less than a cup of coffee. So putting together some of those facts so that our principals will have that handy when they are asked by a parent or need to share that information.
The reason, I'm sorry.
Can I just make a suggestion on those fun facts? Is not to lean so heavily on the cost. To me, this is all about the value that the district, that the taxpayer, the community is getting. So, people don't like to hear conversations about cost. They want to understand what the value of this is to them. So my comment would be focusing on that. What are they going to get for that? What are they getting? They're getting the best teachers. They're getting opportunities in career tech ed that weren't there. They're getting retaining new teachers into the district. All those things we focus on that, not so much the cost, because then cost is a negative connotation to people, and we'll turn them off. So.
Sure, and I think it's worded in a way that just says for a very small investment, you're getting this, but that's very fair.
The reason that I'm very I push this. And again, thank you very much. You guys did an excellent job, with that. But the reason why I want to make this a priority, because back to school night is happening. My daughter's school is tomorrow night. And back to school night, January, have a lot of parents going there. I don't want the parents go to ask some of the staff some of the questions, and they are reluctant to answer them, even though they're within their legal right to do so. So that is the reason why I want to push it as fast as we could to get it out. So there is an urgency to do that, because back to school is the time that if some facts need to be pushed out, that will be the time.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, thank you for your work and getting the press release out just a few minutes ago, right? So thank you for that.
9:21 p.m.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I know you don't need more suggestions about how to do your job, but one thing I would say too that I would love are sound bites from our public comments. I just think it would be great for us to be able to divide those up and say, here's a grandparent that says this, here's a electrician that says this, just for us that maintain Facebook pages especially. It's just nice to have those little sound bites out there so the public sees that this is not a board decision, even though we've approved it. It's really the community coming and asking us to do this, and so whatever we can do along those lines, I would just say that would be one of my suggestions as well.
I agree. There was great points made. We'll also be pushing out our student videos that we started last year. We'll push those out again. The students with question videos and infographics, and really get social media hopping again.
Great. Thanks for all the work you guys do in communications. We're very grateful.
Thank you.
All right, so Director Lung, anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to move into executive session. I will say that our executive session will include consultation with Deputy Counsel Wendy Jacobs as well as Dr. Tucker. Any other staff, Dr. Tucker, that needs to be present? I'm looking down the row. They're all hoping that they don't have to be. So we'll have, except for poor Wendy. Wendy Jacobs and Dr. Tucker will join us. So we will, any further discussion about moving into executive session? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lemieux.
And just point of clarification, this is executive session and adjournment. Aye.
Thank you for that. Lung.
Aye.
Ray, aye, and we will convene an executive session in the superintendent's conference room. Thanks again, everyone that's here, and have a good evening.